What's up, everybody? I am your host, an unhinged renegade astronaut that has fallen madly in love with a hot space vampire. And that is my co-host, a British SAS officer that will stop at nothing to save the world and kill my girlfriend. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate, where today we put our egos aside in order to team up and put a stop to the space vampire zombie apocalypse. Because this week we are deep diving into Tobe Hooper's completely unhinged blend of sci-fi, horror, and a bunch of other crazy shit. That's right, we are talking about Lifeforce from 1985. So, you finally picked Lifeforce. The listeners probably don't know this, but you have almost picked this movie at least 30 times in the past year or so.
Yeah. So going back in the first year of the show, I had heard of this movie for years. It's a very cult classic movie, and I'd gotten the steelbook, and I was like, okay, well, I'll wait to watch it. I'll pick it for us to cover, and that way I can get my first watch and actually cover and do an episode because it's rare that we get to do episodes where it's movies that we've never seen before and we
True.
get our first impression. And this movie has been almost picked so many times, and it's gotten put aside. And for those who are big fans of the show, I actually bought this steelbook at the same time that I got my Prince of Darkness steelbook.
Wow. Yeah.
And as you know, when we covered that episode, we had the same conversation about how long I had been almost picking that.
Yeah.
So those two movies were at like the forefront of being picked for a long time, and this one the longest because I'm not a big fan of sci-fi, and I'm not necessarily a huge fan of vampires, but I kept seeing clips, and I've seen so many shots and people talking about the practical effects in this movie, and I love Tobe Hooper. So finally, I've chosen this movie, and after having it for like 2.5 years and it being on the cusp of being an episode, we are finally here.
We are here. Yeah, so I was not very familiar with this movie. I have seen some clips here and there because of the special effects. But honestly, this was a first time watch for me. And I gotta say, at times, this film is batshit insane. I think I told you right after my first watch that this might be one of the weirdest movies we have ever covered. And I feel better about the movie after my second watch, but I still stand by that statement. It's a weird one. So I went in 100% blind. I didn't look anything up. All I knew was Tobe Hooper was the director, and it has some really impressive special effects. And about 30 or so minutes in, I was completely confused. Like, is this an alien movie? But then that kind of goes out the window when we get zombies that like shoot electricity out of their faces, not to mention explode into dust. Then we got the bad guys jumping in and out of bodies like Jason Goes to Hell, an astronaut who is so obsessed with this alien chick that it borders on stalking. And he also has fucking a psychic connection with her. And to top it off, the whole last 40 minutes of this is like a full blown zombie apocalypse movie where we see London just get totally destroyed as hundreds of people are ripped apart in the streets. I think it's safe to say Life Force is truly a roller coaster on steroids type film.
Well, if there's one thing that you cannot call this movie, it's not entertaining. Like
You mean
it
it's
is.
not
So
entertaining?
yeah, one thing you cannot say about this movie is
Yeah,
that it's not entertaining.
this is true.
I can definitely 100% see how it fell into cult fandom. There is a person who's not a fan of sci-fi horror. This movie, there's parts of it that I absolutely love. I think there's certain things in this movie that's fucking awesome, but I can definitely see how other people would find this movie a shit show. I can see how it didn't do as good at box office, and I think that's because this movie really struggles finding an identity. It's so many different things. Like, seems like Tobe Hooper wanted to do vampires. He definitely wanted to do a zombie apocalypse because
Yeah.
the zombies don't even look like a lot of the vampires that we see throughout the story. So we get the whole zombie apocalypse,
It's kinda like 3
vampire
movies.
thing.
It's like 3 movies stacked
It,
on top of each other.
yeah, it definitely is. It is essentially a sci-fi horror action part love story mixed in with vampires and zombies.
Yes. So, one thing I do want to say before we get too far into it, this movie is very plot heavy. So, if you don't like stories being spoiled and you have never seen this, do yourself a favor, pause this, go watch the movie, come back because it does have some okay twists in it. And last but not least, you only have a couple more days to get those last minute requests in for Listener Appreciation Month. We have gotten a bunch of good movies this year, but we don't actually start building the schedule until we pretty much get through the whole month of April. So there is still some time. And with that being said, are you ready to dive into Life Force from 1985?
I have been ready for like 2.5 years
Yeah,
and I haven't pulled the trigger and I am 100% bullet in the chamber, ready to go.
you got vampire zombie blue balls.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at grindhousesyndicate.horror.pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes as always. And you know what I always say, the morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
And if you really love us and don't want us to fall in love with a space alien vampire chick that is only using you to suck the life out of the human race and then bail, give us a review. Life Force is a 1985 British science fiction horror film directed by Tobe Hooper, written by Don Jacoby and Dan O'Brien, who, if you remember our Return of the Living Dead episode, he actually wrote and directed that film, but is mostly known as a staple of the Alien franchise. So it stars Steve Railsback, Peter Firth, Patrick Stewart, and of course, Mathilda May, who everybody remembers.
She's definitely memorable.
Yes,
Like, she is probably one of the most beautiful women on the planet
gorgeous.
at that time.
Yeah.
And I know that they went through like 60 different casting choices before they actually got her in there. But she actually had an interesting ballerina dancing background, not a huge acting background, but I think that that really helped her pull off the nude, but not sexually, like she's like as if an alien was portraying a person. She's nude and attractive, but she doesn't carry herself in a over sexual way,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is perfect for this role, and I think it's why they struggled casting this role
But she's kind of
so
like hot
much.
girl next door. It's
Yeah,
really
but
more her vibe.
she's naked, but she doesn't use those things to outright try to seduce you. She carries herself like an alien wearing person skin and doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And she thinks, and I agree, I think her ballerina background and how they kinda used their body and ballerina dancing to tell a story really helped her with that role.
So it was based on Colin Wilson's 1976 novel, The Space Vampires, which tells the story of a trio of humanoids in a state of suspended animation that are brought to Earth after being discovered in an alien spaceship by the crew of the European space shuttle, the Churchill. It was produced by London Cannon Films, Easdram, and Maham Golan, who also produced Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead remake from 1990. Here we are again.
Yeah,
Menhem Golan.
the more episodes we do, the smaller the horror world
Yeah.
seems to seem. There's a lot of coincidences that happen on our shows and at movies that we pick at complete random, but man, we got a lot of webs going
Yeah.
here.
So it was released on June 21st of 1985, had a budget of $25 million, which is fucking massive, and a very disappointing box office of 11.6 million, making it a certified financial failure. Now, $25 million is a very big budget for a horror film. Just for a comparison, a somewhat recent film, Scream 5, only had a budget of 24 million, and that was in 2022 money. So 25 million in 1985 is actually worth $76 million in today's money.
Yeah,
Wow, that is a
yeah.
huge budget.
Well,
And
this was Canon Films trying to make a big budget movie. Like, they were known for doing crazy, like, almost B-movie type stuff, and that's why they brought on Tobe Hooper for 3-movie deal and just kept throwing money at it.
yeah. The reason Lifeforce got such a big budget was because Poltergeist had just become this mega hit, raking in over $76 million, which was, of course, directed by Tobe Hooper and Steven Spielberg. And production company Canon was aiming for Lifeforce to become like the next Star Wars. So in their mind, they had the perfect sci-fi story and one of the most recently successful directors around that time. So they dumped money into this thing, which makes that $11 million box office hurt. It's definitely a sting.
Yeah, I do wonder, though, and I wish that we could find the numbers on it, like, with the cult status that it's gained, just think back VHS days, how many VHSs they sold, and then now with horror collecting and boutique labels have went heavily at this movie, like, the 3 big ones have went back and forth doing releases of this. I think that they have at least made that money back plus some.
So, like I was saying, Poltergeist had just become this big mega hit, rocketing Tobe Hooper's career into the stratosphere, leading to Canon Films to ink a 3-picture deal with the director, with Lifeforce being chosen as the first film of that deal, followed by Invaders from Mars and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Now, because this was based off of a novel, the story was already there, meaning all they would have to do is write it as a screenplay, changing small details here and there, prompting Cannon to hire Steve O'Bannon and Don Jacoby to write it. Those small changes that were made were, instead of an asteroid belt, the alien ship would be discovered in Halley's Comet, which would coincide with the real-life Halley's Comet flyby in 1986, which was actually Hooper's idea. Also, the time setting, which was changed from the mid-21st century to the mid-1980s, and of course, the biggest change, the name, which was changed from Space Vampires to Lifeforce, believing that Space Vampires sounds more like Canon's typical low-budget exploitation films, which I agree, and I personally think that was probably one of the best ideas they have.
Yeah, a lot of people who worked on the movie think that that was an awful idea, but I disagree.
I disagree as well.
I think Space Vampires sounds like a B horror
I'm
movie,
not
and
taking that seriously.
yeah,
No
and
way.
if you're throwing like that Space Vampires sounds like, if in the '80s you're going to do like a comedy homage to
Super
the
cheesy.
'50s alien invasion movies. It doesn't seem like a real serious big budget box office movie. I think Lifeforce was a much better title.
Yeah, I don't think I would even watch a movie with a title like Space Vampires. Like, I might if I was
I
having
mean,
fun, you know?
we've done like Thanksgiving and
Yeah, but
Poultry Guy.
that's fun, you know? If I'm
Yeah.
sitting down to watch a serious
Yeah,
movie, it
yeah,
ain't
yeah.
gonna be that.
Yeah, and that's why I said it'd be almost like a comedy homage to the '50s alien invasion movies more than it would be a horror movie.
Now, despite these small changes, original writer of the book, Colin Wilson, was very unhappy with the finished film, later saying, John Fowles had once told me that the film of the Magus was the worst movie ever made. After seeing Life Force, I sent him a postcard telling him that I got one better. So, needless to say, he was not happy with the film version. So once they get O'Bannon and Jacoby to write the screenplay and Hooper on board to direct, they set out to recruit some major special effects artists because this movie was going to be a big budget, epic sci-fi horror film rivaling Star Wars and Ridley Scott's Alien, leading them to hire John Dykstra and his team, who was the same person behind the original Star Wars effects, as well as Nick Malley and his team, who also worked on Star Wars with makeup designer Stuart Freeborn. And just in case you didn't know, these are the two men who designed and built the iconic character Yoda. So we got some heavy hitters here.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the cast and crew, everybody is very, very well seasoned, top notch, some of the best in the world at what they do. Like even the riggers they got to do the float space scenes mostly in the beginning, which you probably didn't get to see. We will put that out there now. So I watched the director's cut and you watched the theatrical version.
Yep.
And through discussing it and research, normally that's not an issue when we cover an episode, but there is a vast difference with the theatrical being much faster, much more sped up. So I think a lot of those scenes I think got missed for you, but some really, really, really good ones, man. They spared no money in going and getting the best of the best for this movie.
So now that the Avengers have been assembled, Hooper began casting, landing on theater actor Steve Railsback, who was known for his fantastic performance in TV miniseries Helter Skelter, where he played infamous murderer Charles Manson. And he was cast as lead character Colonel Carlson. Now, when it came to the hot lead space vampire that is capable of hypnotizing men with her beauty, Hooper auditioned young, beautiful women from all over the world, eventually landing on an 18-year-old French ballet dancer, Mathilda May, who at the time of casting couldn't speak a lick of English, forcing her to learn during her 6 months of filming in the UK. This would turn out to be a fantastic idea by Hooper because I'm pretty sure the main reason people remember this film is because of how hot and naked she is during the whole movie.
Yeah, I will counter that. I think the main reason this thing has fallen into cult status is the special effects and optical effects that I actually didn't know a whole lot about until diving into this movie. But number 2 is definitely, I agree, Matilda May. She is I hate to say that a movie's remembered because of a female lead being naked in the movie. That sounds awful.
Well, it's very uncommon.
But uh, I think it was done in a way that wasn't exploitative. I think that she pulled that role off very graceful, and I think Tobe Hooper very much did not take advantage of that. She said that he was really sweet, like, he didn't try to force her to do anything that she was, like, majorly uncomfortable with outside of being nude in general, but yeah, she's literally on the fucking posters naked. Like, she is something that people remember.
So, filming began on February 2nd of 1984 in the UK at EMI Studios, which was originally scheduled for 17 weeks, but ended up going 5 weeks over, with Hooper continuously asking the studio for more money. After adding to the budget multiple times, Cannon eventually reached a point where they had run out of funds, temporarily shutting down production and eventually ditching some of the scenes that hadn't been filmed yet. Most of this was blamed on Hooper's erratic directing style and his lack of proper planning, which has been commented on by many of the film's producers and even the writers, which we'll get into more in a moment. Another big problem when it came to scheduling and the budget was the massive amount of practical effects and unique sets, which we've talked about this many times on the show in the past. The main reason why so many films use CGI over practical effects is because practical effects are a lot slower to film and sometimes unpredictable, leading to a lot of restaging and reshooting of scenes, getting the effect to actually work properly. And with CGI, they have the ability to shoot quickly and then go back in during post production, taking their time to get it right. So, after filming wrapped, the project then headed into editing, with Tobe Hooper's original cut running a whopping 128 minutes long. This was a bit of a problem for the studio, believing that too much of the beginning of the movie took place in space, resulting in them cutting out 12 minutes, bringing it at a more reasonable 116 minutes. But here in the US, that would be cut down even more at TriStar's request, putting the US version at 101 minutes long. So essentially, you have 3 different cuts of this film. Lifeforce editor John Grover described the film as a, quote, very weird film, and claimed that half the cast and crew were loaded on coke the whole shoot because they were all, quote, into drugs. Kind of a weird statement from the editor.
I mean, it's the '80s, and I mean, I could see it. I could definitely, after watching this movie, I could definitely see that there was a lot of
Some cocaine.
partying going on in the back. I mean, like I said, one of the things that I think hurt this movie the most was its a lack of identity. And I know it's really hard when you're shooting a movie, especially at this scale with this many different scenes, to really get the overall feel of the movie while you're doing it. And that really, is up to the editor when they're editing to put things together. So he was probably the first one in the world to start putting stuff together and say, holy shit,
Yeah.
this is like 10 different movies.
So Lifeforce was released on June 21st, 1985 to poor box office returns, opening in just 4th place behind Ron Howard's Cocoon, The Goonies, and Rambo First Blood Part 2. It also received negative reviews from American critics, with the Los Angeles Times printing, quote, Lifeforce is a peculiar movie that is difficult to get a handle on. One critic even called the film, quote, hysterical vampire porn. So, yeah, that's elite.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, I definitely don't think this goes anywhere near pornography.
Agreed. So the movie obviously bombed, causing the studio, the producers, and Hooper to begin pointing fingers, with Hooper saying a year after the release that Lifeforce had a great look but lacked a screenplay. There wasn't a hell of a lot that could be done about that except to change it completely. The film started off as space vampires, and that's actually what it should have been called. With the title, you look at the picture with a completely different set of sunglasses. So, at least in this sense, Hooper blamed the writing, which was done by Dan O'Bannon and Don Jacoby, with O'Bannon firing back saying, quote, having Hooper as the director was like having Bozo the Clown at the helm. Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, Tobe Hooper's movies are really hard to get a finger on. Like, his style is almost his ability to make completely different movies. Like, he doesn't have a set style like a lot of directors do. You can watch one of his movies and then watch another, and they're completely different. You would never think that the same guy directed them. But I think that's also a testament to part of his talent. But I agree with him on the if this movie didn't have a screenplay going on, I already mentioned before, I think one of the hardest things was taking this story and putting it on film. Like, you have to have somebody who's writing the 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 screenplay that really has a vision of how this is going to translate into a 2-hour movie. It is really hard to do space. It is. Like,
Yeah.
no matter what, it's really hard to take a book and put it on film. That's hard. Taking space from a book and putting it on film is extremely hard. And then when you have an entire other species and vampires and these creatures that are involved that these aliens really look like, and all these different wild things like, the sucking the life out of people, like reading that in a book and then translating that into film is extremely difficult, and if this movie truly did not have a screenplay that was good going in, there's nothing that a director can do but shoot what was written for him.
So, no matter who is to blame for the box office disaster that is Lifeforce, the film did eventually find its footing with the home video release, much like many late 80s and early 90s horror films. The first home release in the UK was the heavily edited US domestic cut, with the full international cut not becoming available until it was released by MGM in the 2000s. The first US release of the international cut was MGM's 1994 release on Laserdisc. On June 18th of 2013, Scream Factory announced that they would be releasing Lifeforce on Blu-ray, which would include both the US domestic cut as well as the international cut. On October 14th of 2013, Arrow Video released Lifeforce in the UK as a Steelbook 2-disc Blu-ray special edition. Then on May 24th of 2022, Scream Factory one-upped Arrow by releasing a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray with only the US cut restored to 4K, leaving the international cut in a boring old 1080p. And finally, on February 17th of 2025, Arrow struck a blow to Scream Factory by releasing another 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray, but this time, both the US cut and UK cut were updated to Blu-ray 4K, as well as both presented in Dolby Vision and Atmos.
And then Scream Factory struck back, releasing last year, both of them in 4K.
Well, this was
I have
Arrows was last year too, so I guess it's
Yeah.
in the same year.
Yeah, this is when Scream Factory took a lot of heat last year for re-releasing a lot of their Blu-rays that they had already done 4K scans on, and pretty much taking those titles and then releasing them a year or two later on 4K, and I think that upset a lot of people when they already had the ability to release the 4K, and they kinda double dipped to
Yeah.
get people to buy. But Scream Factory did, because the steelbook that I have has the 4K scan from the original camera negatives on Blu-ray of both versions of the film. And then also Imprint just did the same thing, and they released a really awesome version that came with posters and press kit. I think there was only 1,000, sold out quick, and they're right now about to release another one that has 1,500 copies.
So basically, when it comes to the physical media version of Lifeforce, it's pretty much turned into the like the Spider-Man meme where the three Spider-Mans are pointing at each other.
Yeah, if for a long time it was Arrow and Scream Factory going back and forth, and I love Arrow to death. I put them up there above Scream Factory just
Yeah.
slightly, but I will credit Scream Factory for being the first to revisit this film. And then Imprint really kind of just tried to one up them both and put this ultimate release together. The only problem was it was so limited in numbers, and Imprint does not reprint films. Like once they release a limited edition, that is it. There is no more reprints. And they actually had to release a cheaper version that did not come with all the posters and stuff because they were in such high demand. So the cult following of this movie is big. Like, for these 3 companies to be going back and forth with all these different releases, and they're obviously selling them to great success, that really opened my eyes to the cult following that this movie does have.
All right, so ratings. Rotten Tom, 58%. IMDb, a 6.2 out of 10. Letterboxd, a 3.2 out of 5. And the Google average audience rating is an insane 5 out of 5, but that is based off of one review on Google Play, so I doubt that is accurate. If you would like to watch this movie, you can currently find it streaming for free on Tubi and Amazon Prime, and for rent on Fandango, YouTube, Apple TV, and Google Play for, get this, $5.99. They went $6 for this thing.
Yeah, I wonder which version of that is they're charging. I know that the version you watched, and probably all of those in streaming are the theatrical cut, probably because there's no way that these streaming companies are going to pay extra for the uncensored version to pay for a whole nother license to show a movie. But the version that you watched, I seen it. It was upscaled, although
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
look good.
streamed. So it did look good, but it is the theatrical version, and I would suggest anybody who's a fan of this movie that has not seen it, go get the 16-minute longer director's cut because, and we'll talk about it more later on, but there is a lot of changes that makes the director's cut, I think, a much superior movie, and I know me and you were talking about this yesterday. I do not believe, based off my research, that Tobe Hooper's original cut that is
It's like
si
100, it's like
it's like
126 minutes or something.
28 minutes longer than the theatrical cut, that has never been released.
All right, so are you ready to dive into the fucking crazy plot of this movie?
I am.
All right. So we start out with a bit of info on an all black screen that says August 9th, the Space Shuttle Churchill, which is a joint British American team, is currently on a mission to get close to Halley's Comet. And as of right now, everything is going good with the ship and team on course and on schedule. Just in case you didn't know, Halley's Comet is a real comet that is pretty famous for its periodic trips close to the sun's orbit, allowing us Earthlings to spot it every 76 years. The last time it was close enough for us to see was just a year after this film came out, which was on purpose, in 1986. And the next time it will zoom past us will be in the year 2061. Its composition is described as a dirty snowball of ice, dust, and rock, which is about 9.3 miles long and 4.9 miles wide, or 15 kilometers long and 8 kilometers wide. The comet isn't in the original book/story, but it was added by Hooper and the writers to coincide with the 1986 arrival of Halley's Comet. So anyway, this ship is attempting to get a close-up look at this dirty snowball as it passes by Earth, and as of right now, everything seems to be going well. But as we are about to see, the team spots the comet for the first time, and they are blown away by its like lime green beauty. So we start out by opening up on the vast, cold, infinite blackness of outer space. And right away, the score hits you with an orchestra, letting you know that this is going to be an epic space movie. And not just an epic space movie, but a Tobe Hooper film with a fucking massive budget. So we then cut to inside the ship where we see the crew all gathered around a big clunky computer as one of the astronauts scans the comet's tail. And after some beep boops and button pressing, the computer picks up something massive hiding inside the tail of ice and dust that's definitely alien made and looks like a dick, which was on purpose.
Yeah, so another thing with that score that you hear, that's another big difference with the theatrical release. Harry Mancini, his entire score is used throughout the movie. You watched this on Amazon?
Yeah.
So you did watch the director's cut. I just actually verified that.
Oh,
Nah. Yeah, because I know there was some debate back and forth between us on which cut you had seen. So, no, Amazon actually does not carry the theatrical cut. So, news to us.
yeah. Yeah, dude, this ship looks like a big old space dick. And this reminded me of the British special effects guy on Hellraiser 2 when he's talking about the Leviathan tentacle, where he's like, looks like a big old cock.
Yeah. I got the Nightmare on Elm Street, the giant Dick Freddy
Yeah.
vibes. But yeah, actually, the behind the scenes of them creating this and painting, doing the paintings and stuff for some of the optical shots of this thing going through space, man, amazing detail, and a lot of it gets cut, unfortunately.
So after they discover this, we then meet the captain of the ship, an American named Colonel Tom Carlson, and he immediately gets on the ball, ordering one of the crew members to radio command that they have found a very large object hiding inside the comet. But unfortunately, they can't get word back to Earth because of space stuff, like bad space weather or something. Damn space weatherman blew it. They can't get radio signals out. So, despite all this, Colonel Carlson thinks about it for a minute and decides that because the comet won't be back for another 76 years, this is their only chance to see what this other ship is, to which he orders the team to move forward with the mission. But he also tells the other astronauts that he is making a slight altercation to the plan because they are now actually going to board this ship, which I gotta say, that's a big dick move.
That is a big dick move.
An alien ship. Let's get on it.
Yeah, I was thinking about the real life consequences of that and making that decision, and I feel like nowadays we would never make that decision. But the fact that this is a once in a lifetime chance, and we've never discovered an alien race, and now this is proof that there is another existence of life. I would definitely discuss this more with the astronauts on how they felt about it.
Also, by the way, we're not talking about a little flying saucer or a chrome sphere here. We're talking about a ship that is roughly 2 miles wide and 150 miles long, just sitting there dark, silent, and completely fucking lifeless. This is
Yeah.
massive.
Would you go into this?
No.
If you were an astronaut and this is like on the brink of making the
No.
biggest discovery of mankind.
Nope. I've already made the
Yeah.
discovery. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go in it, dude. No fucking way. I would want to go back to Earth, get guns, then go.
Yeah. Well, this is their only chance.
Well, I'd miss
This
it.
is their only shot. That's why they tell them to go in there. Yeah.
You think you listen to that Eminem song?
I would. Got one shot,
Yep.
one opportunity. Anyway, yeah, that's why I said I would discuss it with the astronauts and the ones that were okay, if there was any that were okay with going in there, I would let them do it, but I would definitely not send everybody in.
So the crew of the Churchill then suit up and decide to go inside and take a look around. And once inside this ship, they find two things. The first is a massive collection of dead, completely dried out bat-like creatures. And they're fucking huge, effectively turning the whole interior of this ship into a massive graveyard of alien life forms that died a very long time ago. And the second thing they find is 3 perfectly preserved human bodies. 2 men and 1 woman, each suspended inside individual glass containers, completely butt-ass naked, floating there perfectly still and somehow alive looking, despite being found inside this alien spacecraft that has been floating in the tail of the comet for God only knows how long. So, a couple things here. One, like I said, I'm not going into this random ass alien spaceship. Two, if somehow they did convince me to go into this alien spaceship, as soon as I saw those big ass dead bat creatures floating around, I'm turning right the fuck around and going back to my dinky ass ship. Like, fuck no. Those things are horrifying and massive. And my first thought would be there's something in here that managed to kill thousands of these giant bat creatures. Like, it's gonna look at me and fucking in my tiny human body and laugh.
Yeah, the creatures and they're fully petrified. So we know that this has happened a extremely long time ago. Their explanation in the movie is that, they're all the moisture's been drained out over, so long, thousands of years, which in reality, I don't think the science behind that backs up. But we do know if you find them petrified, it's been a long fucking time. Like these things are completely mummified into rock. And that would be enough for me, I agree, but the naked humans on this ship would also fucking freak me out.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
okay, like, obviously, these people were either stolen from Earth, at some recent time, or there was a civilization before our current one, and both of those are extremely scary thoughts.
Yeah, my last observation, and probably the most important, all the big doors that they go through in this ship look like buttholes.
Yeah.
Look exactly like buttholes. So yeah, while
Well,
it
if so this ship is actually they talk about it in the making of, it is made to be, like, partially ship, but also a big part of it is supposed to represent, like, human or living anatomy. So, this is essentially meant to be that this ship is one giant creature in itself.
and that's its butthole.
It
So
is.
yeah,
It's literally that's what it's meant to be when they go inside here, is that they're going inside of a living giant thing.
yeah, so while in this ship, Carlson starts fucking with one of the bat things where he discovers that they are so dried out that he literally snaps the finger off, which causes part of it to kind of turn to dust. So these things are crispy. And just in case they haven't reached their bad idea quota for the day, they decide to bag this dead bat creature up and transport it back to their ship in order to bring it home back to Earth. Now, while they are doing this, they get a radio transmission from the pilot informing them that the ship is opening up this kind of giant umbrella thing fixed on the back of it. And this is where we see this super bright light shoot in through the butthole door. My immediate thought here was this is what my poop sees right before it hits the toilet bowl.
That's awful.
Yeah. So Colonel Carlson sees this and quickly announces to his team, let's get the fuck out of here. No, that is not at all what he says. He immediately decides that this is where they need to explore next, as he then takes off towards this giant light, which is where they find the naked people. He's fucking just like, it doesn't matter how sketchy it is. He's like, we're going to go there.
Yeah, with this thing being clearly alive, this giant ship, like everything around it, what it looks like from the outside, inside, this thing's clearly a living thing. And then when I was told that it's now moving, it knows that we're inside of it.
That's bad.
Yeah, you're like a gerbil in a butt,
Yep.
but much smaller. Yeah, it's time to get the fuck out. Like, even if I was one who had no family, no kids, and I was like, "Okay, I will be the only one to go in for humanity," at that point, I would be like, "I'm out."
Now, I don't know about the dudes because to me they just kind of look like normal, basic ass white dudes. But the woman is a perfect physical representation of female beauty. Everything about her is gorgeous. And I went back and forth while writing this episode about not focusing on this part, but my God, her boobs are perfect.
Yeah, I also kept thinking about, I can't spend the whole episode mentioning every scene where she is absolutely fucking stunning, so I wanna put that out there now. Holy shit, Matilda May is a fucking goddess in this movie. I mean, she is a fucking goddess. But we do get an explanation of her beauty that really is very important to the story later on. But my God.
Those boobs are 10 out of 10.
Yeah, interesting thing for her is she auditioned not knowing that it was going to be nude. Tobe Hooper said that they had been through about 30 or 40 different women at this point and still hadn't found one that really carried theirself like the character was. They were more sexually, like they carried their bodies more sexually. And he kept hearing about this Matilda May, was a French actress, and they got her in, and she kinda freaked out when she found out it was gonna be nude, but ended up getting the part and doing it, and I think part of that uncomfortableness and her not focusing on the actual nude aspect of it made her play this character so well, and God, she is amazing.
So yeah, these guys spot this woman, and the first thing they notice after the boobs is that she is strikingly, almost supernaturally beautiful. And she just floats there in her glass container with this expression on her face that is somewhere between completely peaceful and deeply unsettling. And this leads to every one of these dudes on the crew just being drawn to her, which should be a red flag, but it is not, because they are men and they're probably horny from being in space for so long, all cramped up in that sausage fest of a ship, and she's visually amazing.
Yeah, one of them literally says, like, "Well, I've been in space for 6 months, she looks perfect to me, and I've been in space 0 days, and I feel the same."
Yeah, and one really important thing we notice here is Colonel Carlson is almost hypnotized by the sight of her. Like, this is far more powerful than just lust. It's like, despite her not even being conscious, he has already fallen in love with her, which we will find out why a little later on. So, fun fact here for these opening scenes where the team is floating through space and eventually in the alien ship, the actors were actually hung by wires 40 feet into the air for hours on end, and apparently this was so strenuous and exhausting, it actually caused some of them to get sick and puke. So the crew then brings all three containers and the bat creature aboard the Churchill in order to begin their journey back to Earth. And this is where things go very wrong very quickly, because somewhere between the comet and Earth, something happens to the crew and the ship, causing it to totally lose communication with the command center, where it now just floats aimlessly around Earth's orbit. This leads to the US government to send a rescue shuttle to find out what the fuck has happened, and what they discover when they get up there is the Churchill has went completely dark, is badly damaged by fire, and at least most of the crew are dead, appearing to have perished in the fire. But that is not all they find. Upon searching through the charred remains of the ship, they spot the three glass containers which are still sitting in the cargo bay, completely intact, totally undamaged, like whatever destroyed the ship and everyone on it made very sure not to touch these three containers. Also, somebody must have gotten away because the rescue team notices there is an escape pod missing, but considering the crew all look like the Crypt Keeper right now, they have no way to tell who survived or where the hell they went.
One interesting thing that I never hear anybody mention in talking about this movie here, so the US shuttle that goes to get them is the US Space Shuttle Columbia, And,
Wow, I did not notice that.
yes, they say the name, Shuttle Columbia whenever they're going to dock the Churchill.
Because I think it blew
Um,
up in 1986?
well, the Challenger blew up in the
Mm.
86, yeah, a couple years later. A couple years after filming this, the Challenger blew up, and then Columbia happened when we were kids.
Yeah, Columbia blew up over
And,
Texas.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, on reentry.
yeah.
But it is kind of a very dark, real life connection to this movie that the Columbia is actually going to check on the Churchill because they have lost all communications and they're going on a rescue mission. Now, in real life, those who know the Columbia disaster know that NASA made a huge blunder whenever they knew that the piece of foam insulation had damaged the tiles on takeoff. It was something that had happened previously in multiple other flights, but never to this degree. The shuttle Atlas was actually ready. It was planned to do a launch like 2 months later. So NASA actually behind the scenes debated whether they should send the Atlas up there to do a rescue mission to possibly save the crew from the Columbia to save their life. But
And ditch the
NASA
Columbia, yeah.
decided it was too costly to do and it would be an embarrassment for something that probably wouldn't be an issue. And as we all know, the Columbia, all members of the Columbia died on re-entry in the early 2000s. Anybody our age remembers when that happened. So it's just a really kind of grim thing that I never hear anybody mention is that the Columbia is actually on a rescue mission to the fake Churchill in this movie, when in reality the same thing really was needed for the Columbia, and it would have saved their lives.
Yeah, and, at this point now, NASA has essentially admitted that the astronauts did not perish instantly like the original story was. They were at least most of them were probably alive through the whole entire process of hurtling to Earth and then slamming into the ground and then
Yeah,
dying.
yeah, there's actually a seven-step process which they put in order what was most likely to kill them the fastest, and all the way down to number 7 is impact on the
Yeah.
ground. So, they died in awful ways on the Columbia on reentry. And I do think that it is something that's really is such a small part of the movie when
Yeah,
they
good
mention the
catch.
Columbia. And actually, so NASA wouldn't have had to ditch the Columbia. The thing is, they didn't want to spend the extra unplanned trip to send the Atlas up early because they could have went back up, left the Columbia in orbit, and went back and did a spacewalk to patch the tiles, but they estimated that that would cost too much. And in reality, they ended up being way more embarrassed, losing the ship entirely, and I think it was 7 or 8 people lost their lives because of it.
So the rescue team brings the containers back to Earth, where they are immediately taken to the European Space Research Center in London. And the scientists there are absolutely beside themselves with excitement because what they are looking at is the greatest discovery in the history of mankind. Living or at least preserved alien life forms that appear to be humanoid in shape and completely undamaged despite everything that happened on the Churchill. And naturally, the very first thing they decide to do is take the woman out of her container and study her boobs.
Yep.
How are these boobs so genetically perfect? Now, this is where we meet a couple of important people. The first is Dr. Hans Falda, and he is the head scientist at the research center. He is a smart, serious, very distinguished older gentleman who approaches all of this with the kind of measured scientific excitement that tells you he has been waiting his whole career for something like this. We also meet another doctor named Perkowski, who is the European Space Agency administrator in charge of overseeing the investigation of the Churchill incident. And we pretty quickly see that he is not having a good day considering the news is nonstop talking about the Comet and shuttle disaster, prompting him to cut off the TV and watch the monitors displaying the hot space girl, who is now laying peacefully on an examination table in a secured lab guarded by men with guns. And after a few minutes of watching this, Bukowski notices that the guard has left his post and walked over to the hot space girl on the table. And when we cut to the lab, we see, much like with Colonel Carlson in the ship, he is almost hypnotized by her beauty, despite her not even being conscious. He then reaches his hand over and touches her chest, which immediately causes her to snap her eyes open, quickly rise up from the table, and walk over to him. Now, if you pay close attention to his eyes in this scene, he doesn't look at those breasts, not one time. Totally keeping eye contact throughout the whole scene. And I gotta point this out, that is an actor dedicated to his craft. He's showing no interest in those boobs here. Get this man an award. He's acting his ass off.
Well, I mean, but he was trying to pull the sheet down when she
We're
awakens.
we're talking about his acting, not what the
Yeah,
character is doing.
well, I just wanna mention how the character literally was about to, hopefully not cop a feel, but at least cop a look on this alien vampire chick, which is what
Yeah,
awoken her.
that's exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, what a scumbag. I would
Yeah.
never do that. Never.
So she then smiles at him, letting him know it's okay to approach her. And when Bukowski sees this, he immediately knows this is bad, prompting him to take off running full speed towards the lab. We then cut back to the hot space girl, where she then removes the man's respirator and begins kissing him. And while this is happening, all the lights and electrical equipment in the room begin to flicker. And right as the guard tries to pull away, we see about 4 or 5 bright blue bolts of electricity shoot from her face to his. She then aggressively pulls him back in for another kiss, where we get a massive charge of blue electricity surrounding them, spinning around the whole room. And this is what is referred to as his life force. And what she is doing here is literally sucking it out of his body into hers. Kind of like she is drinking him, totally depleting all of his energy, nutrients, water, and life itself. So after running through the whole damn building, Bukowski finally arrives at the lab, but unfortunately it is too late to save the man, because as he swings the door open, not only is the hot space girl done, but the guard is now on the verge of death, looking more like an Egyptian mummy than an Englishman.
Yeah, the special effects here are fucking incredible. That's one thing that I've seen for years in shots of this movie prior to watching it
I've always seen the
is
shots of the zombies.
yeah, when they get the life force sucked out of them. God, it looks so awesome. And so I did learn a little bit about the when they're sucking the life force out of them. So I assumed that that was CGI, but CGI was actually not used. That is something that they did in post with practical or not. It is practical, but optical effects, which are done post shooting, which I did not know a whole lot about, that is used a ton in this movie. And I'm not going to go over each one of them because I don't know exactly how they work. I was heard in description of how they work, and I think we want to touch on that a little bit more in an extra video on this movie
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Patreon.
Yeah, we
But
want to do like a special effects kind of centered after show.
yeah, but specifically for this effect, they went in and scratched each frame one by one to make these almost lightning-like bolts look like they're moving, and they scratched them one by one and illuminated the scratches in post-production to get this. So this is not CGI at all. This is all optical effect, and
Done by hand.
it is yeah, he said they spent 2 or 3 hours just scratching frames, almost doing like a flip book, like
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
draw something and you make it move and you flip through the book, they had to do that with the frames to make these things look like they were moving, and I just wanted to point that out because the detail in that is incredible.
So she completely desiccates the guard, turning him into a dried out husk of a human being, exactly like the bat creatures they found in the ship. And as Bukowski stands there in shock, the woman then approaches him, caresses his face and neck, which gets the attention of a passing by Dr. Fulida, who immediately calls security and rushes to the lab. But just like Bukowski, he is also too late as he then finds his extremely weak coworker sitting on the floor with no hot space girl in sight. And just like that, she is now loose in the research center, all charged up with a fresh batch of life force, which she uses to kill a few more guards and escape the building. So, a couple of interesting things, real quick. So, for a lot of scenes where Hot Space Girl walks through like a bunch of debris, like the scene here where she like blows out the glass and then walks on it, they accomplished these scenes by gluing translucent soles onto her feet for full body shots. Another thing here is we get a lot of shots where a shadow or railing is perfectly lined up to block the camera from seeing her boobs. Well, despite May being extremely comfortable being naked on set, they actually did this in order to avoid the dreaded X rating here in the US. And as a matter of fact, she was so comfortable that she would remain nude in between scenes and talk to the crew like nothing was weird.
Yeah, she was comfortable with it, but in the interview I seen with her, she was very shy about it. Although she was very comfortable with her body. She was confident with her body. It still made her extremely shy, and then her not being able to speak English on top of that made it very, very hard. But yeah, when you talk about the X rating stuff and the blocking, like Toby Hooper, when he did the first shot of her walking down the stairs, one of the assistants came up to him and was like, "That is one of the most X-rated shots I've ever seen," and, like, he was right up in her, like, ass
Stuff.
behind vagina shot, like, right up in her crotch while she was coming down the stairs, and Toby Hooper was just smoking his cigar, and he was like, "Ah, well, fuck it then. I guess we'll reshoot it." And had to reshoot the whole thing. And there was a lot of scenes like that where, he coming from like a background. I know he had just did Poltergeist, but no X-rated stuff. He's coming from a background of making like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Independent, yeah.
where they don't worry about ratings. So,
He
and,
comes
and
from
Pol-
the
Poltergeist didn't have any rating board issues. So coming into this movie, he was very much like, he had to be reminded multiple times, like, "Hey, that's never gonna pass."
yeah, he comes from a grindhouse background.
Yeah, and one thing I love is they talk about just how smooth he was with it, like, yeah, you're right." Like, working with on a big studio budget, he's like, yeah, fuck it, then we'll reshoot it."
Yeah, so according to crew members and May herself, there was a lot of attention paid to her body, with Hooper continuously making sure that she always looked perfect. And the reason I bring this up is because apparently, right before filming, they shaved off her bush, and then they realized, oh, wow, we can see way too much. And
Yeah.
this led to her having to wear a pubic wig.
Well, so this was the pubic wig was only a day or 2. Because Toby Hooper was like they initially did it, and there's a female who worked as a direct assistant to him, to Toby Hooper, and she's like, "Toby, you can't do that. Like, she's 18 years old. You want," because he was like, "She's an alien, so I want, like, all of her body hair removed." And she's like, "No, you can't do that." So, once it grew back out, like a day or 2, he was like, "That's enough." So, she was like, every day before shooting, she would have to go down in her pubic area and trim it up. And they actually played a big joke on him. So, they had a stand-in for her that they would do for, like, when they're doing 30 minutes of lighting setups and stuff, and then they would call her in. And the stand-in had to put a black wig on, and they had to cut it because the hair was too long, and they played a joke on Tobe Hooper where she literally swept up all this hair that she had cut off, and they brought Matilda May in there. And they called Toby in, and they were like, "Is that good enough? Did we cut off enough for you?" And they said Tobe Hooper just died laughing.
So the British government immediately goes into full panic mode because they now have an alien life form wandering around London that can kill a person by kissing them, which is a problem I'm sure no one ever expected to have. And because this is now a matter of national security, the UK government assigns SAS Colonel Colin Keynes to investigate, with him being ordered to find the alien girl as fast as possible, starting at the lab. So we then cut to Keynes arriving at the research facility where he immediately meets with Dr. Fulida and Dr. Gowski, where they quickly show him the shriveled, dry remains of the guard. And this is where we find out that Fidola's expertise is specifically in death in what he calls the life force. And basically, what he tells Keynes here is every person has a life force, which continues even after death. And he believes that this girl has the ability to suck that life force right out of people, using it to essentially feed off of it. And just when Keynes thinks this situation can't get any weirder, Fedora drops the bomb on him that this isn't just a normal girl, this is a powerful space alien that they essentially have no idea how to stop. After this, we then cut to a different area of the lab where we see two more guards watching the two men vampires that was with the space girl in the alien ship. And while these two guards discuss the situation, a sudden explosion occurs, freeing the vampires from their glass cases, prompting the guards to trigger an alarm and fire their weapons at the approaching vampires.
Dude, every time I would watch this shot of them laying there and this explosion going off, and as soon as the dust settles, within like a less than 2 seconds, they're standing and immediately start walking. They go from like laying in these coffins to within under 2 seconds, they're standing up and walking.
Yeah.
The way that they set up and edited those shots, man, it's just so scary.
It's
to me.
mystical, yeah.
Yeah, it's scary. Like you
Yeah.
go from like, okay, these two are not a danger to me. They're laying down. I have time if they were to get up, and then boom, an explosion happens, and they are walking at you immediately. Like if I was in that situation, that would fucking horrify me knowing that these things are aliens.
So, yeah, they start shooting at these two vampires, and they quickly learn that this does absolutely nothing to the creatures as we then see their bodies full of bullet holes, but they show no reaction as they continue towards the exit. This forces the two guards to fall back into the staircase, where they then chuck grenades towards the men, ducking for cover as another big explosion rocks the building. And this catches the attention of Fulida and Keynes, who immediately take off running towards the lab. Once they arrive, they find part of the lab is now badly damaged, but it appears that the two space vampires are now dead. After asking a few questions, they are then informed that the autopsy of the original guard has begun, prompting them to head in that direction. We then cut to 4 doctors standing over the body, set to begin their examination, when suddenly the zombie-like corpse wakes up and rises from the table. Now, despite him coming back alive, he is definitely not his normal self. What we see here is he's not even really human anymore. He is more like a zombie from Night of the Living Dead. But instead of brains, he craves life force, prompting him to grab the main doctor and begin to drain out his body, very similar to what we saw with the space girl earlier. And what's really cool about this scene is, as we watch the health quickly drain from the doctor's body, we start to see the sunken in, shriveled face of the zombie guard begin to regenerate, resulting in him looking totally normal once he finishes up with the doctor. And needless to say, this leaves everybody in the room horrified. This is honestly one of the coolest effects in the film. The animatronic zombie looks absolutely amazing. I mean, like, even his eyes and facial features move so well. This is like a 10 out of 10 effect.
Yeah, when you take the awesome zombie effect with his fucking eyes, like the eyes is always what gets me. how just amazing it looked, but then you compare that or combine that with him sucking the life out of the doctor, and it's one of the few times in the movie that we actually see somebody turn from one of these zombies back into a person. I think it's the only time in the
Yeah.
movie we see that.
Yeah, it is.
So when you combine that awesome practical effect with the awesome optical effect that they did post shooting and how well it comes together to be able to pull that off in a time before CGI was really a big mainstay. Now they would just do that with
Yeah.
CGI and it'd be cheap as fuck. But you would be able to tell it was CGI. This has a lot more of an authentic look to it. And I think it's one of those things that just makes us love 80s horror
Yeah.
movies, man.
Yeah, 100%. I would much rather see this than CGI. I don't care how good CGI looks. So this effect was done by Nick Malley and his team with John Schoenrad helping build these zombie bodies in the back of an old converted ambulance. This was, of course, done with a very advanced animatronic that took up to 20 people to operate via controllers, and it took an entire week to film. So after the rejuvenated guard turns back to normal after killing the doctor, Fulida orders both him and the doctor, or the dead doctor, to be placed in an isolation cell until they can figure out just what the hell's going on here. And this is when Fulida realizes that the zombie guard reanimated exactly 2 hours after he was attacked by Space Girl. And if his theory is correct, the now dead doctor will also reanimate 2 hours from now, looking for some life force to feed on. And this is when we, the viewer, find out that when the space girl drains someone, it does not just kill them, it turns them into something that needs to feed as well. And if they do not get their fix of life force within a certain amount of time, they will explode into dust, which is incredibly dramatic and also fucking awesome.
Yeah, and it's one of the beauties of the story of this movie because at first you're like, okay, vampires mixed with zombies. You know, they turn into like these zombies and they have to feed off the life force. And if they don't get it, they turn into the zombies. And then during the autopsy scene, you think, okay, once they're zombies, as soon as they have a person that they can take the life force from, they turn back into a person. And then you see these guys turn into dust, and you're like, wait a minute. Well, that's not what we just seen with this guy, and that's not what we see with the other 3 characters that came here, so there's a big, like, moment of trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, and I think that's an awesome part of this story, along with we didn't touch on when the crew of the Columbia first goes in, we get an awesome shot of this zombie floating by. It's the first horror scene of the movie. It's fucking incredible looking, and it sets you in this spot where there was a 30-day gap in time, and you're like, okay, now we're about to learn throughout this movie what happened in this 30 days of time that caused this crew from in the beginning of the movie on the Churchill to essentially all die and become these zombie-like
Yeah.
creatures. So that combined with trying to figure out exactly what is going on here without it being too spoon-fed to you, I think is what made the book a great book. Like, that sounds like a great book, and putting that on cinema would be really hard to do. And I think that they did a good job on those aspects of it.
Yeah, that is the very reason why I said at the beginning of the episode, if you haven't seen this movie and you don't like stories being spoiled, watch the movie and then listen to the episode because it is there's some stuff to figure out in this movie
There's
that
some
you
plot twists.
yeah. All right, so quick recap. So now we have got a very attractive alien vampire loose in London with the ability to create an army of life force zombie vampire hybrid things. And they have the potential to run around eating everybody they can get their hands on. And the British government has no fucking clue how to stop it or where this deadly alien even is. But Colonel Keynes is about to get his first clue as we then see him get a phone call about an unrecognizable woman that was found dead in a nearby park. And right as we cut to the body, we see that she indeed has been drained of her life force, which means she will most certainly be reanimating in less than 2 hours, looking for some fresh life force to eat. After Kane visits the crime scene, he then heads back to the research center where he joins Dr. Fulida down in the isolation cell, where we now see the former zombie guard freaking out, almost looking like he is going through withdrawals from drugs, as the clock ticks closer and closer to that 2-hour mark. He's like, man, you got one of those little blue life force pills. So we then see him suddenly collapse to the floor, where his skin quickly shrivels back up, taking the shape of his bones as his eyes roll in the back of his head and he begins to let out painful groans. After about 30 seconds of this, the zombie guard then dies, proving Dr. Fulida's theory right, as he then pokes the body with a stick, which in turn falls apart as we then see what looks like grains of dirt spill out from his abdomen, meaning if the zombie doesn't feed on life force every 2 hours, they will die by essentially turning into frail, crumbling corpses. So after that, they then walk over to the pathologist's cell, where he's also freaking out, fiending for some life force. But when he spots the 3 men walking towards him, he takes off running full speed in their direction, when suddenly he explodes into dust, almost like his body was like completely vaporized. We then quickly cut to another examination table holding the now zombified woman from the park, who, just like the others, wakes up right at that 2-hour mark, where we see her immediately start panicking, trying to get free from the restraints. After a minute or so of this, her body starts convulsing until she eventually dies, as we then see her eyes roll back into her skull when she suddenly explodes into gray dust, causing the lab to more closely resemble Ground Zero on 9/11.
So back to back, we get to see 3 of these things
Yeah.
die, and my favorite is the zombie charging the cage and him dying right as he hits this cage and turning into, they essentially are like mummified dust, and he hits the bars of the cage and just shatters into dust. That was
It's
such a fucking awesome scene,
It
dude.
is really
Like,
awesome.
this movie's so entertaining in that aspect. Like, the way they shot that and did it with practical effects and edited that, it was just so fucking cool. And then the female coming alive, I love that they had the little, orange bush on her
Yeah.
shriveled up corpse too. But she has the eye thing that
Oh,
the
it
first
looks
one
great.
had, and she looks amazing and sounds so fucking creepy.
Yeah, the special effect, like the practical creatures, animatronics look amazing. So after this crazy ass shit, it appears our man Dr. Bukowski has recovered, as he then walks into the room and informs Keynes that the radar just picked up a small object re-entering Earth's atmosphere over Texas, which they believe might be the missing escape pod that could be housing the lone survivor of the Churchill, and the only one who could possibly fill in the blanks on where this girl came from. Which they are indeed right, because next we see the rescue team break open the door of the escape pod, revealing the mission commander, Colonel Tom Carlson, who is alive but has definitely seen better days. One thing I do find interesting is they find this man crashed down in a random empty field in Texas, run him to the closest military base, make him clean up and shave off his beard, put on his dress uniform, then make him board a flight which is going to take him all the way to the UK for a meeting with Keynes. I would be
I hope
pissed if
that
that
this
was
guy
me.
I hope he doesn't have, like, a wife and kid. Well, clearly doesn't have a wife. I hope not. But yeah, any family member for that matter, he gets no time.
I'd be like, "Dude, I just was in a crash from space. Like, let me sleep for a couple days.
Yeah, I could definitely see them flying him to the UK considering they
Just call
found a
me.
whole ship of dead people
We'll
and
do we'll
zombies.
do the meeting on the phone."
But yeah, I mean, they literally give him no time. I fully expected his capsule to have a zombie in it or some type of like alien deformed zombie. I thought that when this thing opened that this was how it was going to start spreading.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I had all these people in this field in Texas running towards this thing. And when it popped open and he was all right in there, I was very shocked, and I also was like, there's something off about this guy. Like, there's gotta be something bad going on here," which he's, like, the best character in the
Oh,
entire movie.
so once Carlson arrives at the research center, he is quickly rushed into an office with a waiting Colonel Keynes, Fulada, and Batowski. And pretty much immediately, we see that Carlson is deeply unsettled and has clearly seen something on that ship that fundamentally broke him, especially after Keynes informs him that despite the fire destroying most of the ship, it did not damage the 3 aliens they intended to bring back to Earth. Carlson is stunned by this, but the next piece of news floors him as Keynes then tells him that the girl woke up and has since escaped and they have no idea where she went. With the only trace of her so far is the drained, zombified body she has left in her path. So after this, they then ask Carlson to explain what happened before he dipped out in the escape pod. And basically what he says here is, as soon as they loaded the glass coffins onto the ship, it started affecting the crew in weird ways, like some feeling sick and others even destroying the radio equipment, cutting off communication. But as they slowly made their way back towards Earth, they all started to die one by one in mysterious ways, completely drained. Eventually, the whole crew had died, leaving only Carlson left alive with no way to communicate with Earth or get any kind of help. After sitting there alone for days, he admits he could feel some kind of connection with the girl when he suddenly realized that he couldn't bring these creatures back to Earth and risk everyone's lives. And despite everything in his body telling him no, he decides to push past his feelings, setting the ship on fire with hopes it would kill the aliens, save the people of Earth from certain doom, and escape in the pod, getting as far away from this hot alien bitch as he could. After the story, he then tells the 3 men that despite the fact that she killed all of his friends, he didn't want to leave the space girl behind. He then admits she had some kind of hypnotic hold on him, making leaving her the hardest thing he ever had to do in his entire life. After the meeting, we then cut to Carlson asleep in a room where we immediately see that he is having some kind of nightmare. One thing I've always noticed about older horror films, and I assume it's like how the camera picked it up or something, but people who are like drenched in sweat from a nightmare, it just always looks like way too much. Like almost like this, I don't know if it's the skin is too shiny or they just look too wet. Like I don't know if it's like a thing with the camera lens or
I
something with
just
the film,
I
but
just think that they put too much water on them.
this is like
Like oil them up or something.
because I remember thinking the same thing about like Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 2, especially 2, where the room, like that record is melt, and we were like, good God, he looked like he just got out of a pool.
Yeah.
I feel like they overdid it back then with the
Pull
sweat.
at the gay bar.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, he's having a nightmare when suddenly the space girl comes flying at him, straddling his torso while she quickly rips off his shirt and begins kissing him. And this is where Carlson finally gives in, going straight for those perky titties, as he then, no shit, starts to motorboat them.
Yeah, they're not big enough to motorboat. I'm just
He's
gonna put
trying.
that out there, but, I guess that they had to, you know I do say this movie gets the criticism for the nudity, and we said earlier, I don't think this movie's sleazy at all. I don't think
No, it's fine.
it goes on, like, sleazy exploitation,
I
any
think
type of level of pornography. And I just think that this was a very toned down way of, he obviously couldn't go for the nipples. Like the movie, the ratings boards would have never let that happen.
If I remember right, like, I think she's only in, like, 8 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, but those titties remain in your mind the entire time.
She's in it for 8 minutes, but those boobs
Also,
last forever.
yeah, and Carlson definitely this scene of this whole sex scene that's going on here, I fucking love it's almost comic, like a comic book style, and if you look at this movie as a whole, it almost has that comic book lighting feel that I've talked about in other movies that are more like Creepshow, which is meant to be like that. This whole scene, the red and blue lighting that they have going on, and I don't know if you paid attention to the background,
Yeah, I
but
did.
they're in this,
It's
like,
super cool.
gothic
Yeah.
dungeon cell with this bed in the middle of it, with all these awesome red and blue lights going on with her illuminated in the middle, and the whole scene, like, to be on set and look at that and look at what you just built, no matter what part you had in it, whether you're lighting or building the sets, like, when that comes together, like, although that's such a small part of the movie, people wonder, like, how the budget was so big, and I've seen some of the producers in the documentary talk about it. The budget was not wasted, it's all on film. Like, they did a lot of groundbreaking stuff. They hired the best teams in the world to work on this movie, and, like, the set and the spaceship in the beginning, that's like a 3 or 4-story set that they built. None of that was, like, mirroring or trick image, anything they added in the back. They had to, like, climb up, like, 2 stories just to get on the platform for that set. They had the riggers that had just did Superman, uh, like, the best riggers in the world doing the floating. But going back to this particular scene, man, there's so many scenes like this that are just incredibly, like, artistic and awesome looking. And that's why I say this movie is not a boring movie. Like, I don't care if you hate this movie for the story. This movie is a fun fucking 80s movie.
I think she looks extremely hot in the cloak thing, like the black thin cloak that she's wearing in the dream sequence. Yeah. So the two then passionately go at each other, with Carlson starting to feel her draining his life force when he suddenly wakes up screaming still in bed. This causes Fulada and Keynes to run into the room to see what the hell just happened, where Carlson informs them that the girl has some kind of mental link with him. But unfortunately, the dream has already started to fade away, causing Dr. Fulada to hypnotize Carlson in order to get more answers. I find it amusing, and I almost wonder if there was like something cut in editing that was in between these two things. But the doctor asks Carlson if they can hypnotize him, and he's immediately like, yeah, sure. And there's another doctor in there that's like,
Wait till morning?
not right now. He's too
Yeah.
exhausted.
Yeah.
And then we immediately cut to the next scene of him being hypnotized. And it's like,
just the next morning. but-
why? Like,
Well, yeah, they cut to the next morning immediately.
Yeah, that's
but
what I'm
it
saying.
does seem like
why make two scenes out of this?
Yeah, it definitely seems like they cut something in between because they jump immediately to it. I thought Carlson, from the story perspective, his story with his obsession with this female figure alien that they found, that his initial story of what happened seemed like there was something that we didn't know as a viewer.
Yeah.
So I felt like he was hiding something, although at the same time, I feel like he is the hero of this movie. So I was very split on, okay, I feel like this guy's hiding something, but I feel like he's good guy at the same time. And it really threw me off when he immediately was like, yes, I'm down to try being hypnotized to get the truth out.
So what we find out here is, because Carlson psychically connected to the space girl, whatever she did to the crew of the Churchill, whatever happened on that ship, it left a link between them that he cannot sever and cannot ignore. He can feel her, he knows where she is, and he experiences what she experiences. And once they figure this out, they realize that they can use this to hunt down the space girl and hopefully stop her from destroying mankind. As we then see through Carlson's mind that the space girl has now jumped into another body and is using this body to seduce random men she comes across. And this leads to Keynes and Carlson teaming up, which is genuinely a great pairing because these two have completely different energies that work really well together. Kane is cool, methodical, and has a very dry British attitude about this whole thing, with Carlson being more of a mix of take no shit American cowboy meets the mentally exhausted, barely holding it together thing.
But what makes the chemistry work so well is Keynes comes in when we first are introduced to him in the movie, he thinks like all of this is absolute bullshit. Like you gotta get down, there's gotta be actual like explanation to this stuff. And now at this point, what he has seen, he allows Carlson to do what he needs to do to get to the bottom of it. And I think that's what makes their chemistry work so well is he doesn't try to hold him back. He's completely on board with whatever they gotta do. And then with Carlson, we find out, you know, uh, him being so quick to be like, "Yes, hypnotize me," although he potentially had something to hide. He he doesn't care about what he has to hide. He does it because he is so obsessed with tracking this woman down.
Yeah, I do think it works really well, like, as a team up, at least to me. And the two big reasons why I like this so much is because both characters respect each other, despite being from different militaries and different countries. And they don't have to fight about like who's in charge because they are both on the same page about breaking any rules necessary and doing whatever it takes to stop this. Like they will fucking break laws, kill people, kidnap people. Like they don't give a fuck. They don't answer to anybody. They're like a good team because they are on the same page, like together.
Yeah, Keynes has I forget what agency he works
SAS.
for, and yeah, basically like the fucking CIA, the US. So he has the
Authority.
ability, yeah, authority to essentially
Do whatever it
do
takes.
whatever Carlson needs to do to track this girl down, and it works perfectly because
Yeah.
Carlson knows what to do, and Keynes has the authority to get it done.
Yeah, with the effects being the number one thing I like about this movie, this team up is the number two thing. Now, despite this new discovery, the Space Girl is not making this easy because, like I said, she has this ability to now jump between bodies, which means that every time Carlson gets a psychic lock on her location, by the time they get there, she has already moved on, leaving behind another dried out corpse and a trail of absolute chaos. So, thanks to this vision that Carlson sees, the group finds out some important info here. One, now that she's in a different body, she is on the hunt for men, but she's smart enough not to drain the men completely, only taking a little bit of life force so she doesn't get caught. Two, Carlson manages to see the license plate number for one of the male victims' cars, narrowing down the search to a specific area of London. It is also worth noting here that now that she is mentally jumping from body to body, that means that her original hot space girl body is hidden somewhere, kind of like acting like her spiritual home base.
Yeah, and that was a heartbreak moment when I realized that Matilda May was no longer playing Matilda May.
Not till the finale. So after tracking the man down, Keynes finds out that the woman he picked up was a nurse named Ellen something, who he dropped off at a psychiatric hospital named Thurlstone for the criminally insane, prompting Keynes and Carlson to hop in a helicopter and immediately fly there to track down this Ellen woman and hopefully trap the hot space girl. And speaking of this hospital, this is where the film takes one of its most entertainingly bizarre turns. Because in tracking the space girl, Carlson and Keynes ends up at this psychiatric institution where they encounter the head physician, a man named Dr. Armstrong. I don't know if you noticed it at all, but Keynes and Carlson are dressed appropriately for their personalities, like what I was just describing earlier. Carlson is wearing blue jeans and a black leather jacket, and Keynes is wearing the very British khaki trench coat and slacks. I don't know what's up with the Brits and the trench coats, but that seems to be like a fashion choice for them.
And one thing I noticed when they show the outside shot of this hospital, and you see the green in the sky of the comet that they're supposed
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
seeing, man, I know it's just like a complete coincidence in my mind, but the outside shots of the church from Prince of Darkness,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
this looks just like it. Like,
Yeah,
it looks
yeah.
like the same building, you got the green in the sky, it was just I thought it just was really cool.
So the two men arrive at the hospital where they are introduced to Dr. Armstrong. And it turns out Ellen, in fact, does work here, and she also has an apartment on the premises. Armstrong quickly takes them into the building where she buzzes them in. But before they head up, they tell Armstrong to wait his ass outside because things are about to get a little violent. Ellen invites the two men into the apartment, acting like nothing is wrong, but totally denies their accusations until Carlson forcefully grabs her, ripping off her robe, revealing fingernail scratch marks from the recent sex she had earlier in the day. Carlson then smacks the shit out of her, demanding to know if the space girl is still in there, before looking her deeply in the eyes and realizing she has already jumped into another body. I do love the scene where Carlson tells Keynes that he's going to have to fuck this bitch up to get some answers, and if he has an issue with it, he needs to wait outside. And Keynes calmly sits back down and says, "Not at all, I'm a natural voyeur." I just
Yeah,
love, like, this, they got good
uh,
chemistry, man.
I love it's such a weird fucking scene to
It
put
is.
in there, but their chemistry works so well, like,
They're
uh
like Starsky and Hutch, but like secret agent versions.
yeah, Carlson looks into this girl's eye, and because this alien chick has partially shared a brain with her, he can look into her brain and get a natural feel that she is into like massive sadism. She is
She likes rough.
yeah, she's like literally he tells him like she wants me to beat this out of her. Like she's sexually turned on by me essentially roughing her up. And I thought this shit was gonna go out of control for a second. I was like, "Oh my god, are they gonna have him like BDSM like fuck the answer out of her?"
He's like,
And I was as much as I love this movie and how wild it gets, I was like, "Please don't go there." Because that would have been, like, on a grimy level of, like, okay, he probably, like, exploitation-wise, took this movie and gave those critics that complain about that a little bit too much juice,
yeah,
uh,
ammo, yeah.
but I thought it was played out perfect, and the comment of, "I'm a natural voyager," just topped it off. I was like, I literally I rarely laugh out loud. I laughed out loud at that
Yeah.
comment.
So Ellen then locks lips with Carlson, where she begins to suck some of his life force from his body, proving that he was right about having the psychic link with the space girl. But when he forces her off of him, she passes out where he puts her in the bed and the two men leave the apartment. So fun fact, this character, Ellen Donaldson, was originally played by one of the most beautiful women in the world and one of my personal celebrity crushes, Olivia Hussey. Of course, famous for her lead role in Black Christmas. She ended up dropping out right before filming after mistakenly thinking that she would be required to be nude in the film.
Wow, I did not I at first, I thought you were saying that this was her, and I was gonna say, like, Matilda May's hotness was so much that it caused my brain to not even
Malfunction.
it just assumed this girl was less attractive, so I didn't even catch that. Dude, my jaw was about to hit the floor as you were saying that. Yeah, that's wild, though. I didn't know that she had dropped out.
So apparently, when the two kissed, Carlson was able to see who she jumped into next, prompting him to describe the person to Armstrong, who turns out is a prisoner there at the hospital confined in another building. They then demand Armstrong take them there immediately, as well as a request to bring along a syringe full of morphine to sedate the man. Armstrong agrees, and they, along with a hospital orderly, head to the solitary confinement room where they find the man asleep in bed. As the group of men stand around the bed discussing what is about to happen, Carlson quickly spins around, grabbing Dr. Armstrong, placing him in a bear hug as Kane snatches the syringe and uses it to inject the doctor, who soon falls to the floor, fading out of consciousness. The orderly freaks out over what just happened to his boss as the men try to explain that who they are looking for jumped into Armstrong's body and intentionally tried to send them on a wild goose chase. But thanks to Carlson's psychic link, he figured it out, giving them the upper hand. They then take Armstrong to a secured room in the building, which, by the way, that fucking green paint job in this room is the ugliest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah, I didn't catch the ugly green paint job.
Oh,
But
God, the whole fucking room is painted in like puke green.
I do want to say, though, that trick that they played on Dr. Armstrong was slick
Awesome.
as fuck.
I had to
And
rewind it.
I did not see it coming
I had
at
to
all.
rewind because I was like, wait, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, did Carlson and Keynes just go bad? Like,
Well, and it's awesome because Dr. Armstrong right before that is like, can't this wait till the morning? Like, we just got him settled down. This guy's like a super serial
he's a
killer.
murderer.
He's a really shitty guy. And it really then clicks of why he was trying to avoid doing this because they knew all along it was him, but they tricked him into going down a different route, and I love that, dude, and that goes back into their chemistry of,
Yeah.
Kane's working in this, like, high up in the government, like, FBI, CIA type investigate like, he knows these little tricks to play and the ways to get around stuff, and Carlson pulls it off, plays the part perfect.
They're just immediately on the same page.
Yeah.
So anyway, they then place a still sedated Armstrong on the examination table, requesting more morphine syringes from the orderly. As Carlson informs the other men that he believes the space girl is now trapped in Armstrong's mind. Also, there's a third guy that's been with them this whole time. I believe he works for the UK government or, something important like that.
The little fat guy?
Yeah, he hasn't really been super important yet, but he's about to be. And his name is Sir Percy Henseltine, but I'm going to call him Percy because that's easier for me to say.
That is, like, the most, like, British, like,
Henseltine.
government name I've ever heard in my life.
So, in order to extract information from Armstrong about the space girl's whereabouts, Carlson does what any reasonable, half-cocked renegade hero would do in this situation. He puts Armstrong's life at risk by shooting him up with a bunch of drugs, placing him into a deep hypnotic trance, where he will then use his psychic connection to essentially enter Armstrong's mind and pull out the information directly. Percy, of course, argues against this, considering it very well could kill the doctor, but Keynes and Carlson don't give a fuck and decide to do it anyway, informing the pudgy British man that this could be their only shot at trapping the girl and stopping the destruction of the human race. So after Carlson shoots up the doctor with the second syringe, Armstrong starts talking in the space girl's voice, which is very unsettling to the three men.
And me.
And me as well. So Carlson then plays bad cop, screaming at the girl, telling her if she doesn't spill the beans, he will keep her trapped like this for weeks. She quickly attempts to seduce him, begging Carlson to come be with her because she loves him. A now agitated Carlson demands to know why him. And this is where she tells him exactly what happened in space the day he found her. And basically what she says is, as the Churchill approached her ship, she was able to get inside not just his mind, but the whole crew's mind, where she then changed her shape and looks to fit his mental projection of an ideal woman, which is why he is so in love with her. And he finds her to be absolutely perfect despite not, really knowing her. And now that I know that, I must say, Carlson's got some damn good taste. This was
Yeah.
his mental picture of the most perfect woman.
I mean, on a serious note, that is an awesome, like, story-wise, that is really awesome, and on a serious note, like, it would be extremely hard to kill somebody that went inside your mind. It's almost like the biblical story of Eve being made
From
from
Adam, yeah.
Adam's rib, and she crafted herself to be the absolute most perfect feminine beauty in exactly what he would want in every way possible. And this is why he immediately feels an extremely strong emotional connection with her when they first go in there and while they're still in the alien spaceship. Like he gets this connection and it makes sense because she was literally made from his mind as the perfect specimen, and I would think it would be really hard to kill that.
Yeah. Because everything about her is like your fucking top tier
Yeah,
from your mind.
yeah, like, even down to things that you wouldn't even think
Yeah.
about, like, how she
Eyebrows or,
yeah,
yeah.
how she carries herself, her facial expressions, like, her tone of voice, how she speaks to him, like, all this stuff, it makes perfect sense, and I thought it was genius, man,
That's
like,
smart.
from a story perspective, I was like, "That is awesome."
So essentially, what they find out here is the space girl and her two companions are not just random alien life forms that were just floating in space. They are actually something much older and much more deliberate than that. They are essentially space vampires, an ancient race that travels through the universe feeding on the life force of other beings. And they have been to Earth before a very long time ago, which strongly implies that a significant chunk of human vampire mythology might actually be rooted in real encounters with these things throughout history, which is a deeply unsettling thought that the film drops on you and then immediately moves on because there is simply too much other insane stuff happening to dwell on that one thing. But
Yeah.
pretty much a mic drop with that.
Yeah, I thought that was really awesome. My other question was like, with the 2 other aliens, were the next 2 astronauts that walked in there, were they homosexual?
I don't know. I don't know how that works.
Like, that just clicked to me. I didn't even get that until we were
Well,
just talking about that. Like,
I
she took
wondered,
the form of him, like his perfect specimen of what he would be most attracted to. Well, where the fuck did these guys get their, like, ideal look from?
I don't know. So, this new bit of information is pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back when it comes to Carlson's sanity, as we then see him freak the fuck out, physically attacking the still sedated Dr. Armstrong when suddenly the doctor takes on the appearance of the space girl to Carlson, which causes him to freeze, diving even deeper into the mental anguish he has been experiencing since he entered the butthole door in the alien ship. He then moves closer and closer to her, screaming, "Let me go," over and over again until he finally leans in and goes to kiss her. Until thankfully, a horrified Keynes and Percy quickly grab him and pull him away because remember, Armstrong only looks like the space girl to Carlson. So what Keynes and Percy are seeing is Carlson about to start making out with this old bald dude.
That I loved that fucking scene
Yeah,
so much. Like, Carlson literally jumps in, or Keynes jumps in, like, as soon like, you can tell it's gonna happen.
I'm not
He
gonna
gets
let you do that,
closer and
bro.
closer, and as soon as they touch lips, he jumps in like, "No, no, 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 bro, you don't want this. Like,
Yeah.
we promise. Like, you can't do this. You're gonna regret it. You're making out with an old man."
Yeah, this brings me to another fun fact. Despite being an older gentleman with many acting roles under his belt, this was actually Patrick Stewart's first on-screen kiss.
Oh god.
So anyway, they run over and pull Carlson away when suddenly a bright blue light shoots out of Armstrong's body, circling the room overhead as bolts of electricity blast Keynes and Percy across the room, along with books, papers, and medical instruments, when Carlson then grabs the doctor's jacket to make it stop, which ends up electrocuting him. And all while this is happening, we start to see tons of furniture and other big and small objects just kind of flying through the air, similar to a tornado. Now, this was accomplished by the set designers building an actual spinning room, which was capable of going so fast it could reach up to 1 G's of gravitational force. According to crew members on set, it looked awesome in person, but unfortunately, most of the effect wasn't really captured on camera, mostly because all the blue lightning stuff swirling around the shot, but still very cool. We've talked about spinning rooms a few times on this show before, but I think this is the first time it's been a room that spins horizontal, kind of like a merry-go-round from hell.
Yeah, yeah. And we get in Poltergeist, we actually get a rotating room. So Tobe Hooper had just done this,
Yeah.
and I agree. I think this is the first one that we've got that spins on a horizontal axis. And, well, it would actually be a vertical axis spinning horizontally. Yeah, I think it's the very first one we've ever covered with that. And it just goes back to they literally went all out,
Yeah.
like, with their sets and the shit they did. The crew was amazing on this.
So, anyway, is pure chaos in this room now that all the life force lightning is spinning above until finally Keynes comes to, running over to Armstrong and jabbing both syringes into his body, once again causing the space girl to be trapped in Armstrong's head, leading to everything calming down pretty quickly as the orderly then bursts through the door, only to discover Percy has passed away due to a broken neck. As soon as Space Girl loses her ability to control Armstrong, Carlson drops to the floor, trembling in fear, as he tells Keynes that it's too late, it's already spreading, and they failed at stopping her. Which is confusing to Keynes because they have been one step behind her this whole time. After this, they board a helicopter with Percy and Armstrong on stretchers as they head back to the research lab. And this is where Keynes realizes that they haven't really been one step behind the girl, because what she has actually been doing is leading them on a wild goose chase while they feed on others in a different location, essentially spreading the alien zombie vampire virus or whatever. And the biggest plot twist here is, despite thinking they killed the 2 male alien vampires, they really just pretended to be dead, disguising themselves as guards, getting out of the facility, and have begun spreading the, whatever virus or whatever this is in London, where we then get some quick scenes of pure pandemonium in the city as zombie vampires chase and eat innocent victims in the streets, which was Hot Space Girl's plan all along.
Yeah, yeah, really ingenious.
Great twist.
Like, they think that they have been a step behind her, and then they realize, like, oh my God, what if we're just seeing what she wants us to see, and there's all this other stuff, which ended up being the case. And they didn't ask the question early enough. If she's in this other person's body, where is her body at?
Yeah.
And do we have the other 2 males, like, under control? Like, do we know for a fact that they are not out causing pandemonium, which they were? And this is when the movie really goes into apocalyptic
Yep.
mode.
Completely changes at this point. So after getting a call from Dr. Fulida, The two men realize the Lifeforce zombie situation has gotten completely out of hand, with people all over the city now infected and spreading the condition to others at an alarming rate. And this is where the film shifts gears in a spectacular fashion, because what started as a contained incident at a research center has now become, essentially 28 days later, a full-blown zombie apocalypse in the middle of London. We're talking thousands of these dried out, life force hungry zombies running through the streets of the city, grabbing anyone they can find and draining them. The military's trying to contain it. The government's trying to figure out how to stop it. And the whole situation is just escalating faster than anyone can manage. So while on the phone with Dr. Fulada, he informs them that he did manage to kill one of the male vampires the old-fashioned way, using a really old, heavily leaded metal sword, essentially to stab it in the energy center, which is located 2 inches below the heart. And this is really smart, because once they put together that the original legends of vampires must have come from these like actual space vampires visiting every, 70 something years, they realized there must be some truth to how to kill them. So Fulada then makes sure that the two men completely understand that it can't be steel or any other kind of metal. It has to be leaded iron. And the actual reason for this is because way back in the day, most of your folklore type monsters had to be killed with pure cold iron and lead. Which I never really thought about that or realized that. So it's a cool little addition from something from the real world into the movie.
Yeah, yeah, definitely really cool. Definitely really convenient that they have Dr. Falada literally like is this super well-renowned doctor who spent his whole life actually obsessed with death and studying these things which come out to be super in handy to the apocalyptic situation. That guy just so happened to work at the space station, the European or the UK's
Yeah,
space research
research facility. Yeah.
place. Yeah.
And he's got his fucking sword
Yeah.
from back in the day,
Like
just in the basement.
how fucking fortunate and lucky for them that they had this guy just working exactly at ground zero where this stuff would take place.
Now, all three men at least feel better knowing they currently had the space girl trapped inside Armstrong's unconscious mind, but that is all about to change. Not to mention, they then receive a coded message from the Prime Minister himself ordering the helicopter to immediately change course and head directly to him. So they've essentially been called to the principal's office.
Ah.
So as they sit and think about all this new information they just got, Armstrong suddenly lets out a loud scream as a long stream of blood comes flying out of his mouth, converging with another large stream of blood from Percy's mouth, as they then both begin to combine, creating a solid form right there in midair, right in front of a now horrified Keynes and Carlson. This is, hands down, my favorite effect in the whole movie. It's so fucking cool. I love it. The first time I saw it, I rewound it like 6 times, and I slowly started figuring out how they did it, which is, kind of simple. But basically, what they did here is Nick Malley and his team made full body casts of both Frank Finley and Patrick Stewart, loaded a custom, like thicker mix of blood into the cast, attached the bodies to the ceiling of the set, releasing the blood, allowing gravity to do its thing, and filmed it using a faster shutter speed, giving it that appearance that it is moving slower. And I don't know if you happen to catch it, but there's like 2 shots of the Patrick Stewart cast where the blood is flying out of his mouth. And if you look really close, obviously the blood, when they had it stored in the mouth, it started to leak like into the rest of the head, and it starts pouring out of the right eye. It fucking looks so gnarly, dude.
I think it was done on purpose, and it's one of my like you just
It could have
said,
been.
one of my favorite scenes of the entire movie.
It could have been,
I
yeah.
actually watched a video in my research of a guy who was downing this scene,
What?
Yeah, well, because he was talking about how, like, awful the optical part of the effect was, how it didn't stand the test of time,
Yeah, I think it
and
did.
I will agree that the optical side, which is where the blood was going, the stuff they did in post, wasn't the most amazing thing, but the fucking blood slowly coming out of their fucking mouth, nose, and then eyes
It's awesome,
as they're
dude.
dying looks incredible.
It
Like,
does.
I counted it as their death scene, for
Yeah,
kills
yeah, yeah.
because I thought it was so cool. I was like, "I have to include that."
Well, Percy's dead, but Armstrong's not dead,
Yeah,
and he's dead after this, but
he
he
yeah,
dies here, yeah.
yeah, and that's why I counted it here, but it looked so fucking creepy. Like, it just looks so
The
unsettling.
slow motion, dude,
Yeah,
is
seeing the blood,
awesome.
like, the lines of blood coming out of their mouth, their nose, their eyes, like, it's awesome looking.
It is. Towards the very end of this scene too, like, the blood is coming out of their mouth, their nose, their eye sockets, and now their fucking ears. Like, it's just flowing out.
And
It's
it
so cool.
and then it forms, like, her, which is this version of her, which I'm sure you're about to read the description of, but it's this version of her, and I'll let you read the description, but the fucking splat of blood, it's awesome,
Yeah,
dude. I don't know how you could, like, if you're a fan of special effects, you could watch this and not be like, "Holy shit, that was cool as fuck."
yeah. So anyway, all this blood in both their bodies drains out, converging together, slowly becoming a shape until it eventually takes the form of the space girl, totally made out of the blood of her victims. God damn it, that's fucking cool.
That is metal as fuck.
She then stands there, angrily staring at the two men before finally letting out a deafening scream as she then releases the form, causing all of that blood to just fall, splattering all over the floor and soaking the helicopter in dark red, thick blood. This obviously causes Carlson's mental health to further decline as he then tells Keynes that he sensed her body it was in London still. But Keynes thinks his partner is keeping something a secret as he then demands to know what really happened on the Churchill. And this is where, while on the verge of a mental breakdown, he admits to Keynes that it wasn't the crew who slowly went crazy, destroying the comms and navigation equipment and, mysteriously dying. It was him attempting to prevent the ship from ever reaching Earth. We then see that he became quickly obsessed with the space girl, leading to him opening her glass coffin and making out with her, where she immediately took some of his life force and gave him some of her life force, which is what created the psychic link that has drove him close to insanity. So when this happened, he began to see her past, which showed him that her species has slowly died off over the course of millions of years, leaving only 3 of them left. But what made him destroy the ship was the fact that he saw her destroying whole entire worlds, causing him to turn his back on the most intense love he has ever known in order to save humanity.
Yeah, so we finally get the secret out
Yeah,
here.
of why he did what he
Yeah,
did.
and it's still a heroic thing to do, like, to kill the person that was literally made specifically for you or made herself into specifically for him, that he had this deep emotional connection with. He essentially sat by and watched her and this crew kill off all of his people, which is why he hid what he came up with a different story, but in the end, he still did the right thing. But it goes back to when they tell him that this ship or this girl essentially was brought back from the ship when they went to investigate it, this girl and these 2 guys, and that she was awake and now loose. The look on his face, like, if you go
It's like,
back and
fuck.
watch
Yeah,
that
yeah.
part in the beginning of the movie,
Yeah, I paid attention to that
he's
on my
not only
second time around.
he's not only like, "Fuck," but he's almost like that girl that got away that you've always thought about, like, is in town.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like somebody's like, "Yeah, I seen so and so the other day, and she's single, and she asked about you." Like, he has that look of like, "Oh my god," but yet intrigue, and it makes sense when you hear this.
So after that, we then hear a news bulletin talking about how bad things have gotten in the streets of London, where we then cut to a bunch of chaotic scenes showing buildings on fire, random explosions, and people being killed and ripped apart by vampire zombies. Awesome fucking scene. I did see at one point a vampire zombie nun killing a woman in the street, which is a sentence I never thought I would say.
That's awesome.
Uh,
I also noticed the nun,
yeah,
and out of all the fucking zombies, like, the nun is
yeah.
awesome.
But yeah, a ton of special effects here. Big shout out to Nick Manley and his team who had to do 500 prosthetic molds for the zombies and their victims here. Another really cool thing I want to mention about this scene is the destruction of London. So, this was accomplished by destroying a miniature model of a real city. So, this model was not built by the production, it was purchased because it was originally a tourist attraction located in the village of Tuctonia in the UK. And it was an exact model of that town. And basically, what happened was the attraction went out of business and closed down. And when the production team found out about this, they went and purchased it for this scene, saving them massive amounts of time and money.
Oh, that's cool. I did not know that. But yeah, I mean, they spare no expense when it comes to explosions, and you get every bit of practical effect, optical effect, awesome, like the way they did paintings with slides with space shots. You get miniatures, explosions, zombies, vampires. This movie has it all, and it literally the teams that they hired to do it were the best of the best.
Yeah, so once they arrive at the Prime Minister's office, they, for the first time, see in person the absolute pandemonium taking place in the city as the result of the escaped vampire aliens. And something I didn't really mention earlier, but the whole time this has been going on, the alien Dick ship has positioned itself in the Earth's orbit right above London, which is probably not good for mankind. Once the men attempt to meet with the prime minister, things get really weird because despite the fact that he summoned them here, he doesn't really seem too interested in talking with them, along with the fact that he also seems to be acting erratic and sweating profusely. The prime minister then excuses himself for a moment and calls his secretary into his office, where Keynes and Carlson, who are definitely picking up on these weird vibes, take a peek, and they actually witness him attacking and sucking the life force from the oblivious woman. This prompts the two men to take off back towards the roof, where they quickly board the helicopter, ordering the pilot to take off, but two zombie soldiers catch up, grabbing onto the side of the aircraft as it climbs higher into the sky, forcing Keynes to shoot them with a flare gun, sending the burning corpses to splat on the street below.
Bro, did you catch the degloving of the
Yes,
hand
I
on
did.
the one zombie?
Awesome.
Yeah,
These soldier zombies look good.
yeah, for those who haven't seen this, like the helicopter's taking off and they run and jump and grab onto the rails at the bottom of the helicopter, and one of the zombies, like, left hand overreaches and grabs onto his right hand and literally just degloves the entire hand.
Yep.
Looks awesome.
So once they're up in the air, the pilot then informs the men that the UK government has officially declared martial law, now falling under the command of NATO, with all military units activating in order to gain control over the chaos. This unfortunately means that no more aircraft are permitted to be in the air, which means if he doesn't land at the staging area, the military is going to shoot them down. Once they meet up with the military, they are informed that there is a deadly plague spreading with an incubation period of 2 hours, meaning the men must be placed in a quarantine until they are cleared of the sickness. Kane then explains a bit about what's really going on here, getting them out of the quarantine and into the Major's operation tent, where he informs them that there has been a perimeter placed around the city and the government is debating whether they should bomb the infected area with a thermonuclear device, effectively obliterating everything in the area. But not all hope is lost, as the major then tells them the decision won't be made for another 3 hours, giving them a little bit of time to find and stop the hot space girl. And after the meeting, they walk outside where they spot a solid blue beam of light coming from the city, reaching all the way into space where the alien dick ship is parked, which is obviously a massive beam of dead people's life force, which I assume is being used to kind of, power this ship, like gas it up. So, with this newfound information, Carlson then tells Keynes that thanks to the blue beam, he now knows where to find the space girl, whose body is being used to transfer the life force to the ship. And because they're almost done collecting the energy they need to survive, she has begun to call for Carlson. Not because she plans on taking him with her or she's madly in love with him. Nope. She just wants her energy she gave him back, which apparently the only reason she gave him the energy in the first place is because that is how she learns about the species she's about to drain and destroy. That's cool.
Yeah, and what's crazy is Carlson knows this and still has this massive love connection to her and wants to get to her, not necessarily to save the world, but because of this connection that he has.
So, as London descends into absolute chaos, Carlson finally manages to escape the staging area and head back into the city, where he tracks the space girl to her current location, leaving Keynes behind. But little does he know, Keynes jacked the Major's car and is attempting to find him. By the way, I love the scene where Carlson accidentally rips the zombie's arm off when he drives away, and then he holds it up like, what the fuck am I going to do with this goddamn zombie arm? And the hand and the fingers are still moving.
You didn't mention the part I love the most is he just throws it in the back.
Yeah, he just
instead of tossing it out the window, he throws it in the in the back seat.
Yeah. So Carlson then finds the hot space girl hiding out in St. Paul's Cathedral. And what happens next is one of the most genuinely strange and oddly compelling sequences in the whole film. Because despite everything she has done, despite every person she has killed and every body she has discarded, Carlson is still drawn to her in this way that he clearly cannot explain or control. The psychic connection between them has become something closer to an obsession. And when they are finally face to face, there is this whole charged, bizarre, almost romantic energy between them that makes absolutely no rational sense and yet somehow works.
Well, no, it does make sense because she is using this to get that energy back.
Well, it makes sense in
she
the
is playing Carlson
in the supernatural way.
and Carlson knows this because he has that connection with her, but he is so infatuated and so in love and so
Horny.
hopes there's this tiny hope that she is actually in love with him, although he knows it's not true. He still cannot stop himself. And she has to essentially, they have to mate again for her to get that part of herself that she gave him back. And she's luring him in, and he knows this, but he literally is willing to risk everything to smash one more time.
Yep.
That's
exactly it.
Literally hit it one more time. He's willing to die and risk everything.
So she then tells him in her own way that essentially she chose him, that she let him live on purpose, and the connection between them is real and intentional. And Carlson, who is already barely holding it together, is absolutely not ready to hear any of this, admit his deep love for her, or more importantly, kill her in order to save everyone. By the way, she is fully clothed now, so that's a bummer. And the dress she has on is horrible. She's dressed like fucking Michael Myers' ghost mom at the end of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. But Kane, who is definitely not in love with the alien vampire chick, actually drives to the now destroyed research facility where all this started in search of Dr. Fulida, who can hopefully help him stop this. And after a few minutes of looking, he finds the man peacefully sitting in his office just mere feet away from the dead male vampire he killed earlier. But after a brief conversation, Fulida starts acting weird. And after he tells Keynes that the girl and Carlson are at St. Paul's Cathedral, Keynes shoots him, believing he has been turned. Fulida then sits down as he begins to methodically laugh like a comic book villain, where we then see his face start to move from something under his skin, which looks so good and so fucking creepy.
Yeah.
And also, again, too much sweat, but
Yeah.
looks good though, man.
It looks extremely unsettling, and it's also like I really liked him, so it sucks that he's gonna die. And you can tell Kane knows like this is something has gotten him,
Yeah.
and I wonder if it was her because he seems to have this knowledge exactly where they're at, as if he shares part of the brain too.
Oh
Like,
yeah, good point.
yeah.
Maybe she came
I
back.
think that's how Keynes realizes when he makes that comment that she has gotten a hold of him. While they were off on this goose hunt, she was in her real body and at some point got to him.
So Fulida then collapses to the floor when suddenly his life force bursts out of his back, out of the large broken window, and up towards the ship. Keynes then grabs the iron-leaded sword and takes off towards the cathedral to finally put an end to this shit. So after that, we then cut back to the cathedral where we see Carlson at a crossroads here. Either accept the space girl's offer and leave with her, believing all of her bullshit about destiny or, find a way to kill the love of his life and save what is left of mankind. Hard choice for him. Also, something I want to add in here, these scenes where Keynes is running through the city trying to get to the church are fucking awesome. Despite it being an alien zombie vampire film, they literally gave us more and better zombie apocalypse scenes than most zombie movies and TV shows. Looking at you, AMC's Walking Dead. Fuck ass AMC cutting the budget every year, causing us to get less and less zombies because they're greedy assholes. But yeah, this movie does a better job at a zombie apocalypse in the last 40 minutes than whole entire zombie movies.
Yeah, I mean, this is like
Chaos.
chaos as soon as everything is going to shit. Like people are running, getting ripped apart. Like we get these whole like scenes in the city that we don't have time to go through in detail, but we do get a good 5 or 10 minutes in between these important
I
parts
say it's at least 10.
of them running through the city, and there's just massive chaos, explosions going off,
It's hundreds of
fires.
extras.
Yeah, like I mean it's awesome.
So, yeah, Keynes is running through the streets of London, dodging zombies, fires, and out of control cars left and right. So, at one point, he literally rides on an out of control car and then hops off. Yeah, it's so fucking cool. And it's basically showing us that the city is turned into absolute chaos, especially once the giant stream of life force navigates through the streets, destroying everything in its path. When Keynes then quickly follows it, turning a corner where he spots the cathedral entrance, which is now littered with zombies and human bodies. But before he can make his way inside to fight the final boss, he is confronted by the other male vampire alien, who is drinking a big old glass of life force. When suddenly Keynes stabs him with the sword, which in turn causes him to morph into a giant evil bat creature that would have definitely made me shit my pants. This thing
Yeah.
is fucking big and scary.
If only Kane could have had like a camera phone back then and snapped a picture of what these aliens actually look like so he could take it to Carlson and be like, dude, this is her.
Yeah.
Like,
You wanna
Like,
fuck that?
what wasn't there a movie where, like, there was, like, this, really, really fat girl, but the guy seen her as super hot? It was a
Shallow Hal.
comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I don't remember the movie in
Jack Black,
details,
yeah.
but I remember the plot. It's like that. Like, she's this alien, but he just sees her as this amazing thing.
Yeah. So after some screeching and wing flapping, the creature finally, it was a really long death scene. He finally explodes, leaving the doorway open for Keynes to make his way inside. And once he does, what do you think he finds? A naked Carlson and Space Girl getting it on in the blue beam of Life Force. I guess Carlson said, fuck mankind. Busting his nut is way more important.
He did, he literally gave in knowing the plan, like, he knows the plan,
Yeah.
he can read her mind because of this part of her that's inside of him, and he has to get a part of him inside of her. He just can't help but get his wiener inside of her.
Kane sees this and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And Carlson's like, "Wait, you don't understand. She's down to let me put it in her butt. I can't turn that down."
And Keynes is like, "No, wait, I got a picture of a ass, look,
Yeah.
there's this giant bat gargoyle's ass, that's what you're putting it in, bro."
So anyway, Kane starts trying to get Carlson's attention, and when he finally looks up, he's like, "Oh yeah, saving the world, I forgot." Where we then see Keynes tossing the sword, and after he catches it in his right hand, he uses one fluid motion, bringing the sharp pointing end downward, stabbing Hot Space Girl in the back, where the blade then goes through her body and into his, essentially turning them both into a shish kebab by driving the sword through both of them at once, impaling them both together. He thought, finally, some fucking penetration.
And this is where I say this movie is part love story too, because he easily could have stopped at her body, but he literally impales himself because he can't live with the thought of killing the thing he loved more than he says it at one point earlier in the movie. It's an emotional love connection that you could never imagine.
Do you think after he stabs her, because he stabs her and then we get a wide shot of they're now like, they're both standing there and they now have red life forces swirling around them. Do you think that in this scene, like he is inside of her at this moment? Because their crotches are together.
I hope so.
And I'm like, dude, did you just stab her with your penis in her? That's fucking weird.
Do you think maybe he busted too early and was, like, too embarrassed and, like, it just he was still trying to keep it going,
I'll
and
distract her with the
he's
sword.
like, "Ah, yeah, yeah, Kane, I've got post-nut clarity.
Yeah.
Yes, give me the sword." This
So
goes back to Kane's and Carlson's awesome chemistry,
yeah.
though, is as soon as Kane shows up and he sees him and he remembers, like, "Oh, yeah, we're saving the world," that or post-nut clarity. But either way, like, Keynes tosses him the sword and he immediately stabs her.
Well, in this scenario, he gets both.
Yeah.
So as the sword goes through them, their combined life force shoots up the energy column.
She got double penetrated.
Yeah,
Oh,
PP. Shoots up the
YouTube's gonna fuck this.
energy column and into the ship above, which then lights up a beautiful blue from the life force as it exits out the Earth's orbit, heading back towards Halley's Comet for another 70 or so years, where hopefully mankind will be waiting with a fucking super nuke ready to wipe them clean from the universe. The ship then takes Carlson, the space girl, and whatever remains of their connected souls with it, and just like that, it is over. The energy column collapses, the zombies die, and I guess crumble to dust, leaving a confused Keynes standing in the street looking up towards the sky as London now lays perfectly silent. And that is the end of Life Force. What a crazy movie.
Wonder, like, Well, the 3 vampires that were left are dead now. All 3 of them have been stabbed with this sword. So,
Well, I don't think she died. Like, they both zap up
he
to the ship.
I know, but I mean, he's not even a fucking, uh, alien, so,
'Cause I don't thi
what did he only get taken based off of him being shish kebab to her? Or,
she's
like,
his fucking sex slave.
what
She can take him
happens?
if she wants.
Like, if she gets stabbed where she got stabbed, she's supposed to die. That's what causes this whole thing to all this, like, red light force to come out of her and be surrounding them.
Maybe she's harder to
It
kill.
says if she's dead, the other 2 we already know is dead, and then what happens to Carlson? Like, is his dead body just rotting in the butthole of this giant ship?
Well, she
Or
does tell him, like, he's one of them. Which
yeah?
I don't know if that I don't know.
Well,
That's
I think that that was part of her trying to convince him to have sex with her so she could get that life force back. That's he said that is her entire goal. She seduces him immediately as soon as he gets there.
it's
I do think she was right in that it was his destiny to bring them to Earth, which is why in the beginning, like that one astronaut's like, "Yeah, I feel awful," because she's drained a bit of his life force, and he's like, "I feel rejuvenated," because he's already gotten a piece of her.
oh,
It's
yeah.
so yeah, she may have been right in that it was his destiny to bring them back to Earth and allow them to get all these souls, but yeah, what wonder what happens now? Like,
Maybe the book says, I
this
don't know.
ship is alive, but their ground troops, their vampires are dead.
I don't know. Maybe she can use, Carlson to repopulate the ship.
Yeah, it may be that when she gets into the ship, she
She's got a
is
lot of life
healed.
force.
I also wonder, like, maybe, does she go up into the ship and, heal because she's in the ship? It's able to heal her, maybe him too. I don't know. But what if she ends up pregnant with his babies and that's the next generation of
Yeah.
vampires and we get a Life Force fucking 2?
I doubt we'll get 2, but alright, so ratings and kill count. There's a total of 24, possibly 26 kills, but there are obviously far more than that. I just didn't have the time to count every fucking one. I did see a YouTube channel that painstakingly went through the film and counted all the bodies and kills, and their total is 179.
Yeah, you got zombie apocalypse
Yeah.
scenes where there's tons of people dying.
All right, so kills 1 through 7 is the crew of the Churchill. They were burned to death in the fire. 8 is the lab guard who had his life force sucked out. 9 is the autopsy doctor, had his life force sucked out. 10 and 11 is lab guard 2 and lab guard 3 who were killed by force lightning. 12 is the random part girl, life force sucked out. 13, zombie guard in the cell, he shrivels up and dies. Zombie doctor in the cell, he explodes. 15 is zombie park girl, also explodes. 16, Sir Percy gets thrown across the room from the force light and gets his neck broken. 15 is male space vampire number 1 was stabbed with the leaded sword. 16, Dr. Armstrong, he uh, bled to death, I guess. The other guy in the helicopter, same thing. 18, the soldier zombie number 1 and soldier zombie number 2. One falls from the helicopter, the other one gets fucking shot with a flare gun. Number 20, zombie guy was shot by Colonel Kane. 21 is Dr. Fulida, who explodes from life force. 22, random British guy number 3 and number 23, random British guy number 4, both catch on fire and burn to death in the street. 24, male vampire number 2 / the giant bat creature explodes after a really long death scene and being stabbed. 25 and 26 are we don't know. 25 is Colonel Carlson and 26 is Hot Space Girl. Both get stabbed with the sword and beam up to the ship, and we don't know. All right, so what's your favorite kill?
Favorite kill by far is Dr. Armstrong. The blood leaking out of the face, shit like that was just awesome. There's a ton of close seconds. There's so many that's hard to judge
Yeah.
because somebody gets the life force sucked out of them. I wanted to go with, like, the girl in the park because her zombie before she
Oh,
explodes
yeah.
is so good looking
Well, I
and
counted her
sounds so
twice.
creepy.
One is her
Um
human death and the other one her zombie death.
Yeah, what's funny is about her human death too is when the kids are like, "Yeah, we snuck
Oh
back because we
god,
thought
yeah.
we were gonna see
Some scissoring.
yeah,
Who the
lesbian sex."
why would they do that
And
in the middle of park?
I don't know, but if you're like a teenage kid and you see one almost naked and one fully naked girl sneaking back in the
That's
woods,
true.
like, you're gonna take a peek. But the cop, actor who's standing there while they're explaining this is just trying so hard not to crack a smile. But anyway, I end up going with the zombie. I think it was the autopsy zombie who runs through the gate bars and
Oh,
just
the
explodes
aut
into dust.
autopsy Doctor Zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also went with Dr. Armstrong, the helicopter blood scene, which is fucking amazing. It's funny because I actually thought I was gonna be alone on that. The close runner-up is actually Dr. Fulida because that creepy face shit, man, it kinda freaked me out. I loved it. It looked really, really good. Huge props to whoever designed that prosthetic animatronic.
I almost went with that too because it's like
It's so good.
his bubbling face
I don't know
is
how
like
they
it's
did it
starting to like bubble.
because it's his
So
face.
they talk about that. Actually, in the documentary, the prosthetics they did, they glued them on with the wrong glue, and they had, like, a painstaking time trying to get the original prosthetic off because when they tried to blow air through it, it didn't work because they had used the wrong adhesive, and then they had to put the face molds back on and do it, and they had essentially multiple people blowing bubbles into these face molds as he was acting.
Cool. That's awesome. Alright, so film rating.
Oh, this is a hard one. I gave the movie a 3.8, which is probably higher than a majority of the population probably give it, but, like, on a watchable scale, like, I will definitely over a 4. Like, I loved watching it. It's a really fucking fun movie. They did not disappoint, I'll say that. This is what happens when you mix, like, horror, action, sci-fi, romance, zombies, and vampire all in one movie. You know, that's also a downfall of the movie. I think that's part I said, you know, it really has a hard time finding an identity. The most important part to me for a horror, sci-fi, zombie-looking vampire movie would be awesome special effects, and this movie definitely delivered in that aspect 100%. Awesome practical and optical effects. The art department and set designs were absolutely fucking incredible. We get this really fun, almost comic like red and blue and green lighting throughout the movie. The characters were great. Matilda May was absolutely amazing. If you're going to forget anything about this movie, the special effects in her, you're not going to forget. The score, Harry Manfredini absolutely did a great job with the score. For those who've watched the theatrical version, gets ripped off with they end up replacing the score. Gotta watch the uncut version of this movie. Definitely seems like what happens when you give a director like Tobe Hooper this crazy story, massive amount of funds, the best of the best in the business, and a shit ton of time to do what he wants. I think the cast and crew all did a really, really great job. Like, I don't think any department fell short for as bad as this movie of a rap as it got when it came out. Like, these were the best in the business, and they all did a really, really good job. I think it really comes down to the identity part and the fact that this is just an extremely hard story from a book to transform into a 2-hour movie without having multiple movies, unlimited time, years to shoot it, something like a Lord of the Rings or Interstellar. They worked on like Avatar for like 10 fucking years. But yeah, I love it, man.
I gave the movie a 4, which is mostly due to the effects. I personally think the story is a bit of a mess, but I think that's not the story's fault. It's because of time and editing. This is a really big and complicated story to fit into an hour and, I don't know, like 40-minute box. It literally doesn't give itself any time to breathe or develop naturally. It also has a bunch of characters, like, in and out of the story. Another positive note for my rating, though, is I think that there were some fantastic performances in the film, especially by Steve Railsback, who plays Carlson. He did an amazing job. I really liked the team up between Carlson and Keynes. It worked really well, and I think it is one of the non-effects highlights of the film. Hooper did a good job directing for the most part. In some ways, I think maybe this was too big of a story for him to handle, especially if you consider some of the behind the scenes stuff like budget issues and going way over the scheduled time for production and all that. But I do think this movie didn't do well in theaters, not because of Hooper, the acting, the effects. I think it was because of editing and timing, like, as in, like, when it was released. And also, I don't think it's, like, an issue nowadays, but, like, back then, I just don't think a lot of Americans really understood British film and humor. The first time I watched this movie this week for this episode, a lot of scenes just felt kind of dry to me. You remember me telling you that after my first watch. And it wasn't until I finished, like, my research and I watched it again that I really grew to enjoy the movie. So, yeah, I get the cult following with it. It is a very impressive film. I do think that it needs more time to breathe. It needs more room for this story. It's too much crammed in.
They said Tobe Hooper was literally in tears of what they were doing
Yeah,
on the
and it
cutting
needs
room
like
floor.
at least a 3-hour version, but yeah, 4 stars for me though, which, like I said, mostly effects and performances, but, um, the story's good, it just needs more room to breathe.
Yeah, and I'm glad because I remember you telling me that, and it didn't seem like you enjoyed the movie from our first conversation, and
I thought it
I
was
loved the movie.
I thought it was
And
okay.
we've talked about how we judge movies a little differently. You judge it on your likability watching. I try to judge a movie overall story, how it was executed. So I felt really bad giving it a 3.8 because watchability, like I'm at a 4 to 5, a 4 to a 4.5. Like I can put this movie on and be completely entertained. Almost every scene has some type of awesome practical effect. I actually learned a lot about optical effects and cool shit they do behind the scenes, which hopefully this week we can get a Patreon episode, a little bit more about how they did that. But literally, almost every scene has that or an amazing set, some awesome shit that when you watch the behind the scenes, you see how big of a scale this movie was really done and that these people were the best in the business at the time at doing what they do.
Yeah, man, definitely a wild ride for a movie.
Yeah, I think overall the story, I think that was the biggest downfall is identity and then, like trying to find an identity. And they talked about how hard it is when you're shooting a movie to really get that sense without a really good, like, script and storyboards and things, a screenplay, I should say. But it also going back to the story, man, like the story is a great story. I could see reading that book based off of the I love when a movie shows you some shit in the beginning and then skips ahead and it's like these bodies floating around dead in space and you spend the whole movie finding out how they got to that point. I love when a movie or a story does that. I could see it being a fantastic book, but translating that into movie, really difficult thing to do. I wish they would have went with maybe a different story if they were gonna throw all this money and the best in the business at it, but overall, super fun movie.
Well, once again, we thank you guys for listening. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the website, check out the socials. Tell a friend, a family member, or a super hot space vampire chick about the show, and we hope to see you next time.